As tonight we're diving into the world of ancient Pacific Ocean navigation. Picture yourself standing at the edge of an endless horizon, surrounded by nothing but water. The sun dips below the ocean's edge, casting a golden trail across the waves. All around you there's only blue, vast, empty blue. And yet somehow you're not lost. You know exactly where you're going. You can read the stars, feel the wind, sense the subtle shifts in the water beneath you, and you trust in an ancient system that has guided voyagers for millennia. You probably won't survive this without a fair amount of awe. Navigating across the world's largest ocean, thousands of miles from land, was no small feat. These navigators didn't have compasses or maps like we do. Instead, they relied on their deep connection to the sea, the sky, and the elements. They had no choice but to trust the winds, the stars, the currents, and their own instincts. Without their skill, the Pacific would have remained an impossible barrier. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The vastness of the Pacific Ocean has always been both a barrier and a highway for the people of the Pacific Islands. Covering over 63 million square miles, the Pacific is a formidable expanse that's difficult to fathom. But it wasn't a landmass that stood between the islands and the world. No, it was more of a gateway, a route to discovery. To the islanders, the ocean wasn't just a sea of water. It was a living entity, a living, breathing space that could offer life or take it away, depending on how well you understood its language. Despite its vastness, the Pacific was not a mystery to the first people who sailed its waters. Imagine trying to cross this ocean with nothing but the stars above you and the rhythmic sway of the sea below. These ancient voyagers developed a deep understanding of the tides, the winds, and the seasonal cycles. Their connection to nature and their environment was so intimate that they were able to navigate vast distances with precision without ever getting lost. In this section, we'll explore how the Polynesians, one of the earliest and most successful groups of navigators, made the ocean their home. Historians still argue whether the Polynesians began their voyaging by accident or whether it was an intentional pursuit. Regardless of the origin story, these explorers mastered the art of island hopping and ocean navigation. They became true wayfinders, able to venture across the Pacific's open waters with little more than a handful of tools and their senses. To them, the ocean was never empty or desolate. It was full of signs, and each wave, gust of wind, and shifting cloud could hold clues to where they were headed, or whether they should turn back. Think about it. Every ripple on the ocean's surface, every dark patch in the water, was a piece of a larger puzzle. Understanding these patterns was key to survival and to the expansion of humanity across the islands of the Pacific. Historians still debate the specifics of how they could navigate so effectively. Some suggest that the Polynesians created mental maps based on stars and the positions of islands. Others point to the influence of ancient oral traditions where knowledge was passed down through generations via storytelling and song. Whatever the method, one thing is certain: the ability to navigate such a vast expanse of ocean was a remarkable achievement. So, as we journey deeper into this fascinating world, consider how people like you and me might feel standing in the same position. The steady hum of the boat, the whisper of the wind, and the weight of generations of wisdom guiding you across an ocean that seems to go on forever. The first navigators didn't have smartphones or GPS. They had something far more ancient: the stars, the sea, and their unshakable understanding of the world around them. The Pacific Ocean is not just vast in size, it's also one of the most unpredictable and dynamic bodies of water on Earth. Imagine staring out at the endless horizon. To a modern traveler, it might look like the ocean just stretches into infinity, a never-ending blue canvas. But to the ancient Polynesians and other Pacific Islanders, it wasn't just empty space. The ocean was a guide, a partner in their voyages. Consider this: you're on a double-hulled canoe, riding the waves like a skilled rider on a horse. Your mission is simple, yet nearly impossible by modern standards: Sail across the vast Pacific without losing your bearings, relying solely on natural signs and your acute understanding of the ocean. To even begin, you would need to see the sea not as a random expanse, but as a place filled with patterns and clues, an ocean teeming with life, movement, and secrets. Historians still argue over how the early voyagers developed such sophisticated navigation skills. While some suggest that their first voyages were the result of curiosity or an accidental discovery, others believe these early explorers were born with an inherent understanding of their surroundings. Whatever the truth, these ancient navigators were masters at reading the sea's natural rhythms, which many of us today might overlook. The ocean wasn't just a waterway. It was a system to be understood and respected. It's difficult to imagine today, but the Pacific Ocean, with all its winds and currents, was like a vast network of interconnected highways. Some of those highways ran in predictable patterns. Others were more like secret paths known only to the initiated. The Pacific didn't just push people around like an uncaring force. It offered the conditions for trade, communication, and cultural exchange between islands. Understanding the patterns of the ocean was a survival skill. Take a moment and consider the scale of the Pacific. It's more than 63 million square miles of ocean. It's the largest body of water on Earth. And yet, the ancient Pacific Islanders made their way across this massive stretch of water like it was their backyard. For them, the ocean was not something to fear, but something to understand and master. And mastering it required an extraordinary knowledge of the sky, the winds, the waves, and the currents. The waves themselves were important guides for these navigators. You can imagine standing on the deck of a canoe as the sun sets behind you, the sky shifting from golden to a deep indigo. In the distance, you spot a distant dark patch in the water, the telltale sign of an underwater reef or an island. You also feel the subtle change in the wind's direction, which signals that you're approaching land. Every shift in the air, every subtle change in the water's texture was a clue, part of the complex language of the sea. But it wasn't just the physical aspects of the ocean that the voyagers relied on. The winds themselves were critical to navigation. These ancient sailors were able to predict and harness the trade winds, which blow steadily across the Pacific, often in the same directions at certain times of the year. These winds created natural routes, known to voyagers as the trade wind highways, stretching across the ocean like a network of invisible roads. It wasn't just about setting a course and waiting for the winds to take you there, though. The key was in knowing how to ride those winds, how to understand when the winds would shift, and how to adjust your course accordingly. The subtle shifts in wind direction, the strength of a breeze, even the temperature of the air, all had meaning. The ability to read these changes was a critical skill that had to be passed down from one generation to the next, carefully preserved through chants, stories, and rituals. Even the tides played a role in navigation. The cycle of the moon, with its waxing and waning, dictated the rhythms of the ocean. The tides could change the current patterns and affect the boat's speed and direction. Knowing how to time a voyage with the moon's cycle could make all the difference between a successful trip and a perilous journey. Historians are still not sure how early Polynesians mastered the tides. It's believed that their deep understanding of the natural world allowed them to track these subtle changes with an almost mystical accuracy. Some scholars believe this knowledge was passed down through generations in the form of legends and oral traditions, while others argue it was the result of intense observation and experimentation. What's certain, though, is that the Pacific Islanders had a relationship with the ocean that was unparalleled in the ancient world. Looking back on these remarkable navigators, it's clear they didn't see the ocean as an obstacle. Instead, they saw it as a challenge to be understood, a companion in their quest for new lands and new horizons. To them, the Pacific wasn't just an enormous void between islands. It was a vast, interconnected network, filled with patterns that only the trained eye could perceive. To imagine being out there, lost in the Pacific's vastness, must have been daunting. Yet, these voyagers traveled confidently, trusting the ocean's signals and the wisdom they carried from their ancestors. It wasn't just a journey across the water. It was a deep communion with the ocean itself. As they sailed, they weren't merely passing through. It was as if they were becoming one with the sea. The Polynesians weren't just skilled in reading the water and the sky, they were also expert sailors. Their vessels, the double-hulled canoes, were perfect for long-distance travel. Imagine yourself stepping aboard one of these amazing ships. The hulls are long and sleek, connected by a sturdy frame, creating a vessel that is both stable and agile on the open sea. You're not just a passenger on this boat. You're part of an ancient tradition that dates back thousands of years, where survival and discovery relied on the precise craftsmanship of your canoe. These double-hulled canoes weren't just boats. They were a direct extension of the navigator's skill. If the canoe was the vehicle, then the navigator was the engine. Built to endure long voyages, these canoes were designed to withstand the harsh conditions of the Pacific Ocean. The structure itself was ingenious. The two parallel hulls allowed for more stability, while the connecting platform between them made it possible to carry more supplies and crew. These boats could also carry enough food, water, and tools to sustain voyagers on extended trips, sometimes lasting months. What made these canoes so remarkable, though, wasn't just their physical design, it was the way they moved. The combination of expert sail control and paddling techniques made them nimble, capable of navigating the complex and shifting currents of the Pacific. Imagine paddling in unison with your crew, each stroke moving you closer to your destination, or raising the sail and feeling the wind catch it, propelling the canoe forward. Historians still argue over exactly how the Polynesians built these ships with such precision. While some suggest that they used simple tools and natural materials, others speculate that there was a more intricate and almost mystical process at play. Some of the most legendary navigators, such as the famous Hokulea voyage, were able to navigate to the furthest reaches of the Pacific using nothing but these canoes. The incredible journeys they undertook on these vessels weren't just feats of navigation. They were feats of endurance, teamwork, and cultural pride. As you step aboard one of these canoes, you'd probably marvel at how they remained afloat during storms and rough seas. The key was in the construction and the way the hulls were perfectly balanced. The platform that connected the two hulls acted like a stabilizer, keeping the canoe from tipping even in the most turbulent waters. The mast and sails were just as important, allowing sailors to catch the right winds and adjust their position if the currents changed unexpectedly. This type of control meant that the Polynesians could chart courses that would seem impossible to us today, across vast expanses of water with no land in sight. Beyond the canoe's design, it was the knowledge of how to read the environment around you that really set these navigators apart. Picture yourself aboard the canoe, gliding through the water. You might not see land for days or even weeks, but you know exactly where you are. This skill came from an understanding of subtle signs that many modern people would overlook. The waves, for instance, weren't just random. They followed patterns. By recognizing these patterns, navigators could tell whether they were headed into calm waters or whether they should expect rough seas ahead. Similarly, the direction of the wind wasn't something they simply relied on. They could read it like a book. The way the wind shifted, the slight temperature changes, even the way it interacted with the waves, told them everything they needed to know about where they were and where they were headed. Historians still debate how much of this knowledge was passed down through generations orally. Some argue that this wisdom was written down in charts or maps, but there's little concrete evidence of this. What is certain, though, is that these navigators had an acute understanding of their environment far beyond what we typically give them credit for. Every detail of the journey was important. The position of the stars, the smell of the air, the patterns of the clouds, these were all part of the navigational toolkit. The Polynesians used the stars above to guide them, yes, but they also knew how to interpret the landforms of distant islands, the shape of the water, and the behaviors of birds, fish, and sea creatures. As strange as it might seem, these seemingly unrelated observations all work together to form a comprehensive understanding of the world around them. Now, close your eyes and picture yourself as a navigator on one of these canoes. You're far from home, with nothing but the ocean stretching out before you. The waves rise and fall, but you aren't afraid. You know exactly what to do. You know how to track the stars, how to feel the subtle shifts in the wind, how to use the behavior of the ocean to predict where you are and where you're headed. This deep connection to nature wasn't just a means of survival, it was a way of life. The sea, the sky, and the stars weren't just tools for navigation, they were sacred. In Hawaiian culture, for instance, there was a deep spiritual connection to the ocean, and voyaging was considered a sacred practice. It wasn't just about traveling from one place to another, it was about connecting to the very essence of the world around you. As we delve deeper into the story of these extraordinary voyagers, consider the fact that their world was not one of technology or machinery. Instead, it was a world where skill, intuition, and respect for nature were all that was needed to conquer the vast expanse of the Pacific. As the sun sinks lower into the horizon, imagine yourself aboard that double-hulled canoe, the ripples of the Pacific lapping against the hulls, and the cool night air brushing against your face. You're surrounded by the vast star-studded sky above you, and though you can't see the land, you know exactly where you are. You've become one with the sea, your senses finely tuned to the rhythms of the world around you. But the journey isn't just about the canoe or the stars, it's about how you read the moon, the tides, and the deep knowledge of the natural world passed down by your ancestors. Navigating by the stars was an art form, no doubt, but it wasn't the only tool in the Wayfinder's toolkit. The moon, with its eternal waxing and waning, played a pivotal role in guiding these ancient voyagers. Far more than just a celestial object to admire from afar, the moon's cycles dictated the behavior of the ocean itself. The tides were directly influenced by the phases of the moon, and understanding this delicate dance between lunar cycles and ocean currents was key to navigating the Pacific with accuracy. Imagine standing at the bow of the canoe, the moon's reflection shimmering in the water beneath you. You're not just admiring the beauty of the moment, you're gauging your location, tracking the shifts in the water, and preparing for what's to come. The navigators of the Pacific understood the moon's impact on the tides in ways that modern sailors often overlook. As the moon's position changes, so too do the currents, and these subtle shifts could mean the difference between a smooth passage and a dangerous storm. Historians still argue whether the Polynesians consciously tracked the moon's cycles in their navigation or if it was an intuitive skill passed down through generations. What is clear is that the moon played a central role in their ability to read the ocean, whether using the moon to time their voyages or to predict the changing of the tides. These navigators had an uncanny ability to harness the lunar influence on the sea. The tides weren't just something they worked with, they were something they understood intimately, incorporating the moon's rhythm into their daily life at sea. The tides, of course, didn't always follow a simple pattern. Depending on the time of year, the tides could vary in strength and direction, making it crucial for the navigator to understand when to ride the tides and when to wait for calmer waters. The mastery of this skill required not just knowledge, but an intuitive understanding of how the ocean responded to the moon's pull. Imagine yourself again on that canoe. The moonlight casts a silver glow over the water, and the tide is shifting, slowly pulling you toward your destination. You sense the change before it happens, reading the subtle shifts in the water, feeling the current grow stronger beneath you. This wasn't just learned knowledge, it was ingrained, passed down through stories, chants, and rituals that connected each generation of navigators to the last. The moon wasn't just an object in the sky, it was a constant companion, guiding them safely across the vast expanse of the Pacific. The tide also helped voyagers locate land. When the tide shifted, they could tell whether they were approaching an island or drifting off course. Experienced navigators could feel these shifts in the water long before the land came into view, giving them a crucial edge in planning their routes. This understanding of the ocean's tides was a testament to the sailors' deep connection to the natural world. They were masters of reading the hidden language of the sea. Historians still wonder whether these navigators used the moon to guide their paths in conjunction with the stars, or if they used one as their primary guide, while the other served as a secondary tool. Some argue that the moon played a larger role in the timing of voyages, helping voyagers choose the best window to set out on their long journeys. Others suggest that the stars were their primary navigation tool, with the moon's cycles providing more of a timing mechanism rather than a route marker. Regardless of the specifics, one thing is certain. These ancient sailors had an intricate and profound understanding of how the celestial bodies influenced their world. The sky wasn't just a decorative backdrop to their voyages, it was their map, their clock, and their calendar. The stars, the sun, and the moon all had specific roles to play, guiding the wayfarers on their long journeys across the vast Pacific. As we think about the importance of the moon in this ancient navigation system, it's hard not to appreciate how much knowledge had to be passed down to each successive generation. These voyagers didn't have the luxury of written records or modern instruments. Their knowledge was passed down orally through stories, songs, and rituals. The rhythm of the tides, the phases of the moon, and the positions of the stars were all part of the cultural fabric of the Pacific Islands, and each new generation learned to interpret these signs as part of their education. Imagine the night sky once again, with the moon rising high above you, guiding you on your journey. The ocean beneath you is no longer a mystery. It's a well-known companion, one that speaks to you in the language of tides and stars. In that moment, you're not just a traveler, you're a part of something far older and more profound than you could ever have imagined. An ancient tradition of navigation that has connected people across the Pacific for thousands of years. As the moon slowly rises and sets on your voyage, you become acutely aware of the sounds around you, the whisper of the wind in the sails, the rhythmic slapping of waves against the hull, the occasional creak of the canoe's frame as it rides the swell. You're not just drifting, you're actively engaged in a dance with the ocean, interpreting every movement, every gust, every ripple as part of the story that will guide you to your destination. While the stars above you form an intricate map of the heavens, it's the ocean's swells that truly direct your journey. You can't just trust the stars and the wind. The Pacific's vast waters speak their own language, a language that takes years, if not decades, to fully understand. You'll need to understand how the ocean's swells behave, to read the way the waves interact with the wind and current. This was a skill that the ancient voyagers developed over centuries, a skill that, when perfected, allowed them to sail thousands of miles across open ocean without ever seeing land. The ocean swells themselves were a key piece of the puzzle. Picture yourself again on that canoe, your body swaying with the natural rhythm of the ocean. The swells, long, rolling waves that build and break in predictable patterns, are more than just the motion of the water. They're the ocean's way of talking to you. These swells didn't appear randomly. They moved according to long-established patterns, and experienced navigators could read these patterns to predict where they were headed and when they could expect land. What's remarkable about the Polynesian navigators is that they could chart courses over thousands of miles without ever seeing the land, relying solely on the direction and consistency of these ocean swells. Imagine being so attuned to the rhythm of the water that you could predict the location of an island just by the way the swells felt beneath your canoe. It sounds like something out of a dream, but for these ancient voyagers, it was reality. They could feel the subtle changes in the swells, whether they were moving toward a distant shore or drifting farther away from it. Historians still argue how exactly the Polynesians managed to master the movement of the swells. Some believe that they used a mental map, keeping track of specific wave patterns that would lead them to certain islands. Others suggest that they relied on an understanding of the ocean currents, which influenced the swells. Whatever the exact method, these navigators had an extraordinary ability to interpret the swell patterns, and it allowed them to venture across the vast Pacific with remarkable precision. The swells themselves were influenced by a variety of factors: the shape of the seafloor, the winds, and even the weather. What made these swells so important, though, was their predictability. The ocean swells followed patterns, and these patterns could be tracked. Over the years, the voyagers learned to anticipate the changes in these swells, and through practice, they became skilled in interpreting them. To the modern eye, it might seem like random chance, but to the ancient navigator, every swell was a message, a vital clue that pointed the way forward. Consider the incredible skill required to navigate this way. The Polynesian navigators didn't have charts, GPS, or even the most basic compass. They had only their understanding of the swells, the winds, and the stars. They used the natural world as their guide, a guide that was as reliable as it was unforgiving. If they misinterpreted the swells or missed an important sign from the ocean, the consequences could be disastrous. But these voyagers weren't just relying on their skills, they were also relying on centuries of tradition. This knowledge was passed down orally from one generation to the next. Think about how much trust the voyagers had to place in their mentors and how much responsibility rested on the shoulders of the navigator. The legacy of knowledge passed through stories, chants, and rituals that connected the voyagers to their ancestors, linking them to a tradition that stretched back for centuries. Historians still argue whether the Polynesians used any written form of navigation, though there's little evidence to support this. Most believe that the navigators relied on mental maps passed down through generations in oral form. This knowledge wasn't just technical, it was also deeply spiritual. Voyaging was more than just a means of travel. It was a sacred practice that connected the navigators to the spirits of their ancestors and the divine forces of nature. Every journey was seen as a form of communication with the sea, and successful voyages were seen as blessings from the gods. The role of the ocean and its swells in this system of navigation was more than just a practical consideration. To the ancient voyagers, the swells weren't just waves, they were part of the ocean's spiritual essence. Understanding them wasn't just about survival, it was about harmony with the natural world. The sea was not an enemy to be conquered, but a partner to be respected and understood. Imagine now, as the swells begin to change beneath your canoe, you feel a shift, a subtle change in the water. You know instinctively that land is close. The swells are different now. They're smaller, sharper, and the water feels warmer. The wind has shifted too, and you sense that you're heading into an area where the ocean will be calmer. With a final adjustment to the sail, you steer the canoe, knowing that you're on the right path. After days of traveling through the vast ocean, you see it in the distance, a tiny speck on the horizon. An island, just as your ancestors predicted. And it wasn't just luck that led you here. It was the culmination of generations of knowledge, passed down through time, skillfully interpreted through the waves, the wind, and the stars. The Polynesian navigators didn't just sail, they danced with the ocean, and in doing so, they became one with it. As the island begins to grow on the horizon, you feel the familiar excitement of nearing your destination, though you know the journey has been far from easy. The swells have shifted in your favor, and the island you've been heading toward now appears with increasing clarity. It's no longer just a distant shadow. It's real, tangible, and within your reach. This is where your expertise, patience, and connection with the natural world have led you. You've read the ocean like a map, and now you are about to step onto solid ground once again, after navigating thousands of miles across an unpredictable sea. But navigating the Pacific wasn't just about getting from one island to another. It was also about understanding the rhythms of the wind, the sea, and the islands themselves. The Polynesians didn't simply sail in straight lines. They didn't take the shortest route between 2 points. Instead, they charted courses that relied on their deep knowledge of the ocean's currents, winds, and the positioning of islands along their paths. The art of island hopping was an intricate one, with voyages sometimes involving stops at intermediate islands, where sailors would wait for the winds to shift before continuing on to their final destination. Imagine for a moment the navigator standing at the helm, watching as the island gradually grows closer. You've been away from land for days or even weeks, relying on the signs of the ocean to lead you. But now that land is in sight, you don't feel the rush that many modern travelers might experience. Instead, you're calm, centered, almost as if you've been expecting this moment all along. You've followed the swells and read the stars, and now the island is confirming what you've known all along. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Historians still argue whether this deep sense of certainty was a product of learned knowledge or an inherent intuition. Some suggest that the voyagers could see the land from further out, using the shape of clouds or the way the light bent around the horizon. Others believe that the Polynesians knew exactly where they were headed, guided by subtle cues only they could detect: the way the waves broke against the shore, the behavior of birds flying overhead, or even the smell of the land that would carry on the breeze. No matter the method, the result was clear. Polynesians were able to travel vast distances across the Pacific with stunning accuracy. One of the most striking features of this navigational system was its reliance on the concept of wayfinding, an approach that combined elements of natural observation with memory and intuition. It wasn't simply about plotting a route, it was about understanding the full context of the environment around you. Experienced navigators could recognize a landmass not only by the island's shapes and features, but also by the subtle changes in the ocean's currents and the winds that surrounded it. They would use mental maps of the Pacific, drawing on a complex network of waypoints based on their vast experiences of the sea. The mental map was crucial to successful navigation. It wasn't about following a linear path. It was about creating a web of interconnected routes and recognizing when to move from one path to the next. These mental maps were formed not just from personal experiences, but from the stories passed down from one generation to the next, each navigator contributing to the collective knowledge of their people. The strength of the Polynesian navigation system lay in the fact that it wasn't based on a static map, but on a dynamic, living understanding of the world. The stories that guided navigators were as important as any physical tool they might have used. The oral tradition was the key to maintaining this deep connection to the sea and the stars. Stories of ancestors, voyages, and islands were passed down through generations, not just as entertainment, but as essential knowledge for future voyagers. They weren't merely myths, they were encoded with real-world information, telling navigators which stars to follow, which currents to avoid, and which winds to trust. This oral system of teaching was far more effective than any written guide because it allowed navigators to learn through experience, not just theory. Historians still debate how much of this knowledge was consciously remembered and how much was intuitively felt. Some argue that these navigators could have created detailed mental maps of their journeys and the surrounding ocean, maps that included currents, winds, swells, and even the behavior of animals. Others suggest that their knowledge was based more on instinct and the ability to read subtle environmental cues. Whatever the answer, what's clear is that the Polynesians didn't just survive the ocean, they thrived on it, mastering its challenges through a deep understanding of nature. Now, as the island draws closer, it's hard not to appreciate the complexity of the knowledge that has guided you. It's not just the moon, the stars, or the wind that led you here. It's a rich tapestry of experience, passed down over generations, weaving together the knowledge of the past with the intuition of the present. The beauty of this ancient system of navigation isn't just in its practicality, it's in its harmony with the natural world, its respect for the sea, the sky, and the land. When you finally reach the shore, you know that you haven't just arrived at another island. You've completed a journey that connects you to a lineage of voyagers who have been crossing the vast Pacific for thousands of years. This is more than a feat of navigation. It's a testament to the incredible adaptability and resilience of the human spirit, capable of charting paths across the most daunting ocean in the world. And as you step off the canoe, your feet touching the sandy shore, you feel an overwhelming sense of accomplishment, but also of gratitude. You've been part of something far greater than yourself, a tradition, a culture, and a way of life that has stood the test of time. The ocean may be vast and unforgiving, but for these navigators, it was always a companion, a teacher, and a guide. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the island now lies fully in view. Its sandy shores, lush vegetation, and towering peaks, a stark contrast to the endless blue of the ocean you've just crossed. After weeks at sea, feeling the salt in your skin and the breeze in your hair, stepping onto land feels like a homecoming. But for the Polynesians, every arrival on an island was not just about reaching a destination. It was about understanding the journey, the stories behind it, the lessons learned from the ocean, and the spirits that guided them. The voyage wasn't over simply because land had been reached. It was merely another chapter in an ongoing relationship with the sea. But before you unpack, plant a flag, or even take a proper rest, there's the matter of acknowledging the spirits. To the ancient Polynesians, each island wasn't just a place, it was a living entity. The islands were seen as family members, each with its own personality, challenges, and characteristics. Navigators didn't just sail to islands. They sailed with respect, honoring the land before stepping foot on it. This wasn't superstition. It was an integral to the very practice of wayfinding. To the Polynesians, their spiritual connection with the land and the sea was just as real and important as their technical navigation skills. Historians still argue the extent to which religious or spiritual beliefs influenced Polynesian voyaging, but there's no doubt that these ancient sailors viewed their expeditions through a deeply spiritual lens. There was no just sailing in the Polynesian worldview. Each journey was a sacred undertaking, a negotiation with the forces of nature. Sailors made offerings to the gods and the sea before embarking on their voyages. It wasn't merely a way of ensuring safe travels, but a way of acknowledging the ocean as a living entity, full of power, mystery, and potential danger. In the modern world, we tend to think of navigation in terms of instruments, GPS, maps, and compasses. But to the ancient navigators, the true instrument was their mind. They relied on a mental map, constantly adjusting their course based on environmental cues. And this was not just a skill, it was a philosophy. To be a wayfinder meant to be in harmony with the world around you, to navigate not through dominance, but through understanding and respect. Every ripple, every gust of wind, every shift in the ocean's rhythm had meaning. The world was not something to be conquered, it was something to be understood. Consider the mental maps that these voyagers constructed in their minds. These weren't simple, linear paths from one point to another. Instead, they were dynamic and shifting, based on environmental factors and the intuition of the navigator. One island might be part of a long chain of islands, connected by swells, winds, and tides. But the path to that island could change based on the time of year, the weather, and even the alignment of the stars. Every trip across the Pacific was an individualized experience, shaped by the conditions of the moment. Yet, despite these changes, the knowledge of where to go and how to get there remained constant. But this knowledge was far from static. While the mental map remained the navigator's main tool, the real-world context of each journey played a critical role in shaping the route. The stars, the wind, the tides, and the swells could alter the course in real time, requiring adjustments and constant recalculations. The ability to adapt to these changes on the fly was just as important as memorizing the charts in one's mind. The process of wayfinding was incredibly personal. It wasn't just about following a prescribed route. It was about feeling the ocean beneath you, reading the clouds above you, and interpreting the behavior of sea creatures. Each wave, each gust of wind was a message, a clue that told the navigator whether they were on course or veering off. If the stars aligned correctly, the tide was in their favor, and the swells were following the expected patterns, the navigator knew they were on the right path. If any of these elements shifted unpredictably, the navigator would need to make adjustments, sometimes with just a small shift in the sail or a slight change in the angle of the canoe. Imagine being that navigator, constantly attuned to the world around you, your mind ever ready to adjust course. This wasn't just technical, it was an art form, a skill that required intense concentration, years of training, and a profound connection with nature. The ocean wasn't a mere obstacle to overcome. It was a partner in the journey, guiding you and challenging you at every turn. There was no map, no compass to rely on, except the one that lived in your mind, honed by generations of sailors before you. Historians still debate whether ancient voyagers had actual written maps or relied solely on their mental images of the world. Some suggest that navigators may have used stick charts, simple maps made from palm fronds and shells that indicated currents and island locations, but these were not used for detailed navigation. They were instead an aid for training, a visual representation of how the ocean's currents interacted with the land. The real map was carried in the navigator's mind, constantly changing with every journey. These stick charts, though, are a perfect metaphor for the way the Polynesians viewed the world, an intricate, interconnected web of forces, all in constant flux. Each journey was a new thread in this web, each island a vital knot that tied the network together. The navigation system wasn't a rigid, fixed path. It was a fluid, living system that allowed for adaptation and change. And as we look at how ancient navigators charted their course across the Pacific, it's clear that their greatest achievement wasn't just their skill at reading the environment. It was their ability to adapt and thrive in a constantly changing world. As the island's shores become clearer before you, you feel a sense of accomplishment, not only because the journey is ending, but because you've completed something much bigger than just a crossing. You've become part of a long and sacred tradition, a tradition that connects you to the voyagers who came before you and to the ocean that will continue to shape your life. As you step onto the sandy beach, the solid ground beneath your feet feels almost foreign after so much time on the water. The subtle rock of the canoe still lingers in your body, a reminder of the ocean that has both tested and guided you. You breathe in the scent of the island air, a mix of salty sea breeze and the rich, earthy fragrance of tropical vegetation. There's a moment of stillness, as though the land itself is greeting you, acknowledging the successful completion of the long journey. The spirits of your ancestors are with you, and the island you've reached is now part of your story. But stepping onto an island is not just a physical return to land. It's an emotional and spiritual homecoming. The Polynesians didn't just arrive at an island. They were born from it, shaped by the land, and in turn, they shaped it. Islands were more than simple destinations. They were extensions of the people, places of sacred connection, where each shore, mountain, and valley had its own significance. The return to an island after a long voyage wasn't just about the physical journey. It was a reaffirmation of the deep bond between the people and their environment. Navigators didn't just see islands as dots on a map. They saw them as living, breathing entities, each with its own personality. When voyagers reached an island, they would often make offerings or perform rituals to honor the spirits of the land and the sea, thanking them for a safe journey and ensuring continued harmony. For them, every island was sacred, and to return to one was to reestablish a connection with the world around them. The rituals performed upon arrival weren't just acts of respect, they were necessary for survival. The natural world had to be treated with reverence if one was to continue to thrive within it. Historians still argue about how much of this spiritual connection shaped the navigation practices of the Polynesians. While some suggest that their voyages were purely pragmatic, driven by trade, migration, or exploration, others emphasize that voyaging was an act of devotion. It was about maintaining balance with nature, respecting the forces of the ocean, and honoring the deities who watched over the journey. For the Polynesians, voyaging was not simply a physical activity. It was a spiritual practice that connected the sailors to the land, the sea, and the cosmos itself. Imagine for a moment what it must have felt like to stand on the shore of a distant island, having crossed thousands of miles of open ocean. You might have arrived tired, sunburned, and with salt-crusted skin, but in that moment, you're part of something far larger than yourself. You've completed a journey that stretches back generations, a journey that unites you with the voyagers who sailed before you. The knowledge you carry with you is not just a personal achievement. It's the culmination of centuries of tradition, of stories, songs, and teachings passed down from one generation to the next. Every island in the Pacific has its own story, its own legacy. The stories of how each island was discovered, how it was named, and the people who first set foot there are woven into the very fabric of Polynesian culture. These stories don't just serve as historical accounts. They are essential to understanding the land and the sea. They contain vital navigational knowledge, embedded in the myths and legends, guiding future generations of voyagers. Historians still debate whether the Polynesians had a formal system of written records to document these journeys. While there is little evidence to suggest that the ancient Polynesians kept written logs, they did have a rich tradition of oral storytelling. These stories were more than just folklore. They were living records of the voyages that shaped the islands, passed down through generations in the form of chants, songs, and poems. These stories weren't just about entertainment, they were the vital textbooks for future voyagers. The Polynesian navigators' use of oral traditions allowed them to pass on vital navigational knowledge, ensuring that each new generation of sailors would be able to embark on their own journeys. And it wasn't just the big epic voyages that were documented in these stories. Every little detail, the position of the stars, the movements of the currents, the behavior of the birds, and the shape of the swells, was recorded in song and story. This oral history allowed navigators to build mental maps, not just of the islands they knew, but of the entire Pacific Ocean. These oral traditions, and the mental maps they created, ensured that even in the absence of written records, the knowledge of the sea was passed on with incredible precision. This system of knowledge, built on both practical observation and spiritual understanding, allowed the Polynesians to sail vast distances with little more than their memories and their connection to the world around them. In a way, the Pacific itself was a living map, one that had been etched into the minds of the navigators over centuries of exploration and discovery. And so, as you stand on the island, looking out across the water that brought you here, you feel not just the weight of the ocean's power, but the pull of the knowledge that flows through your blood. You are not just a sailor. You are a part of a living tradition, one that has been passed down across the generations. The ocean that stretches out before you has always been the same, but the way you navigate it has been shaped by countless stories, by the wisdom of those who came before you. This profound connection between the people and the sea, the land and the stars, is what made Polynesian navigation so extraordinary. It wasn't just a set of techniques, it was a way of life, a way of seeing the world that combined knowledge, respect, and spirituality. As you breathe in the fresh island air, you realize that your journey wasn't just about reaching the destination. It was about becoming part of something eternal, a part of the ocean's ongoing rhythm. Now, with the island firmly beneath your feet, you realize that your journey isn't just about navigating the sea. It's about understanding the relationships between the sea, the sky, and the land. These connections form the core of Polynesian voyaging. After centuries of exploration, the Polynesians had perfected not only the art of navigation, but also the philosophy that underpinned it. To them, the ocean was not an obstacle to be conquered, but a realm of deep meaning, filled with lessons, mysteries, and connections. The sky, with its vast endless canopy, was their map. The stars were their guide. Yet these navigators didn't just use the stars in a way that we might think of today, merely identifying constellations and following fixed routes. No, the Polynesian navigators approached the stars with a deeper understanding. The stars weren't just points in the sky. They were an intimate part of their culture, their stories, and their very being. They were not separate from the ocean, but a part of the same living, breathing world. The stars told the navigators where they were going, and more importantly, helped them understand their place in the vast, interconnected world. The sky's stars, the ocean's currents, the birds and the wind, all of these things were like puzzle pieces that fit together to form the map that guided voyagers across thousands of miles of open ocean. And as you stand on the shore, looking up at the same stars that guided your ancestors, you sense a connection that goes beyond mere navigation. The stars, the ocean, and the land, they're all part of a grand story, a story that you are now a part of. Historians still debate how much of this star-based navigation was based on a system of fixed constellations versus more fluid patterns of observation. Some believe that Polynesian navigators used a fixed set of stars to chart their courses, while others suggest that the system was more dynamic, relying on the position of stars relative to the time of year and location. What is clear, however, is that the Polynesians were experts at using the stars as a map, not just as a point of reference, but as part of a living dynamic system that they could interpret, adapt to, and use to guide them across the seas. Now, as you look up at the night sky, the stars above you seem to whisper secrets. You begin to understand that the stars are not just for navigation, they are part of a larger, deeper connection to the world around you. Every star in the sky is tied to a story, a myth, or a piece of practical knowledge passed down from generation to generation. The stars are, in essence, the ancestors' way of continuing to guide the wayfarers across the ocean, even from beyond the grave. They are eternal beacons that transcend time and space, guiding the voyagers in life and in death. As you embark on the next part of your journey, whether staying on the island or setting sail once again, you realize that navigation is never just about finding a destination. It's about honoring the knowledge of those who came before you. The stars, the ocean, the wind, and the land are all part of a greater rhythm, a cosmic dance that connects all beings, all places, and all times. This is the true beauty of Polynesian navigation. It is not just a practical skill, but a philosophy, a way of understanding the world and our place in it. The stars' connection to the islands is so deeply ingrained in Polynesian culture that even the name of the islands themselves is tied to celestial meaning. Many islands were named after specific stars, and the stories about their creation and settlement often involve the stars as guides. These names were more than just identifiers. They were a constant reminder of the cosmic relationship between the islands and the stars. The land wasn't just a place to settle. It was a place to be part of a larger narrative that included the heavens above and the ocean below. Historians still explore how the Polynesians were able to map their journey in such intricate detail, using nothing but the sky and the sea. Some suggest that navigators had a system of mental charts that could recreate the entire Pacific Ocean in their minds, based on a combination of islands, stars, swells, and ocean currents. Others believe that they had a deeper, almost spiritual relationship with the sea and the sky, one that went beyond simple technique and ventured into the realm of intuition, experience, and inherited wisdom. As you stand on the island, watching the sun dip below the horizon, you begin to appreciate the true depth of the Polynesians' knowledge. These voyagers weren't just mapping distances, they were mapping connections. Each journey was a reaffirmation of their bond with the natural world, a reaffirmation of their place within the great web of life that connects everything from the smallest fish to the furthest star. The journey wasn't about getting from one place to another. It was about moving in harmony with the forces of nature, guided by the stars, the winds, and the rhythms of the ocean. As the darkness falls, the stars above you twinkle with silent guidance. You know that the ocean is vast and full of mystery, but you also know that you are part of an ancient tradition, one that has connected humans to the sea and the sky for thousands of years. The stars continue to shine, and the ocean continues to roll, just as it has for countless generations of voyagers before you. The night deepens, and the stars above seem even more luminous. As you sit quietly on the shore, watching the waves gently roll in, the full weight of the ancient art of Polynesian navigation settles upon you. The vast expanse of the Pacific is no longer an intimidating, empty space. It's now a carefully charted territory, alive with meaning. The sea, the sky, the stars, and even the creatures of the ocean have all played their part in guiding you to this island. It wasn't just about reaching the destination. It was about becoming part of a larger, ever-turning wheel that spans generations, cultures, and traditions. Looking back on the journey, you begin to appreciate how much of the navigation was rooted in subtlety. Modern sailors rely on instruments to guide them, but the Polynesians relied on their own senses. They were finely attuned to the environment around them. The smallest shift in the wind, the sound of waves lapping against the canoe, the flight patterns of seabirds. These ancient voyagers didn't need to see land to know where they were. They had internalized the movements of the ocean and the sky. They didn't just read the stars, they felt them. And in doing so, they connected themselves with something far bigger than themselves, the ever-moving, ever-changing rhythm of the natural world. This connection to the natural world wasn't just practical, it was spiritual. The Polynesians understood that their journey didn't begin when they left the shore and end when they arrived. They arrived. It was a continuous cycle, with each trip and each island visited adding to a larger story. The sea was a vast interconnected web that required constant attention and respect. Every voyage was a continuation of the stories that came before it, and every navigator was a link in that chain. The ocean wasn't something to be crossed. It was something to be honored, something that shaped the very essence of those who sailed upon it. Historians still argue whether this respect for the ocean and the environment was a universal belief across all Polynesian cultures or whether it was more regional. Some scholars believe that certain islands or island groups had their own unique traditions regarding the sea and the stars, while others argue that this reverence for the ocean was a common thread that tied all of Polynesia together. What we do know is that in some form, the ocean was always seen as more than just a pathway. It was a living, breathing entity that needed to be respected, understood, and listened to. At the heart of this understanding was the role of pono, a Hawaiian concept meaning righteousness or balance. It was a way of living in harmony with the environment, ensuring that both humans and nature were treated with respect. For the Polynesian navigators, this meant not just using the ocean as a tool for exploration, but understanding their place within the larger cosmos. The navigator wasn't just a traveler. They were a steward, a guide who balanced the needs of the people with the rhythms of nature. This idea of balance is key to understanding how the Polynesians navigated not only the physical ocean, but also the spiritual and cultural ocean that surrounded them. When they set out on a journey, they didn't just look for signs in the sky. They looked for harmony in all things. The wind, the waves, the behavior of birds and fish, they were all part of the same system and all needed to be understood in unison. Imagine for a moment the level of skill required to maintain that balance. You weren't just relying on celestial bodies or the elements, you were relying on an understanding of how the entire environment worked together. A subtle shift in the wind could change your course, while a sudden cloud formation could signal an approaching storm. A bird flying in a certain direction could indicate the proximity of land. Every clue, no matter how small, had meaning. The Polynesians knew that no journey was truly complete until they had returned to the land. The ocean, though vast and infinite, wasn't just about traveling between islands. It was about ensuring that the connection to the land, to the people, and to the natural world remained intact. When voyagers returned from a long journey, it wasn't just a moment of celebration. It was a moment of renewal, a reaffirmation of their connection to the land and the sea. Each new island they discovered, each wave they crossed, was part of the ongoing story of Polynesian navigation, a story that was passed down from generation to generation. As you sit on the beach, the sound of the waves soothing your thoughts, you begin to realize that your journey wasn't just a personal achievement. It was part of a much larger, ongoing legacy. You are part of that story now, continuing the journey that was started by the first voyagers who sailed across the Pacific. The stars above, the ocean before you, and the land at your feet all have a story to tell. And now, that story is yours to tell as well. Historians still argue how these ancient voyagers were able to piece together such a sophisticated understanding of the world. Some suggest that their journeys were simply about survival and trade, while others believe that the quest for knowledge and the understanding of the cosmos was a primary motivator. One thing is certain, though. The Polynesians were unparalleled in their ability to read the ocean, to understand its rhythms, and to navigate it with unparalleled skill. As you rise to your feet, the stars above you gleam with quiet pride. The ocean stretches out before you, vast and mysterious, but no longer intimidating. You know its secrets, and you know that as long as you respect its rhythms, it will guide you home again. For now, though, you've arrived at your destination. The journey isn't over, it's just begun. As the evening settles deeper into night, the sounds of the island become more pronounced. The rustling of leaves in the breeze, the occasional call of a distant bird, the rhythmic crash of waves along the shore. But it's the quiet, the soft hum of the natural world that truly fills the air. There's a palpable sense of peace that accompanies being on land, yet in the back of your mind, the ocean calls. The vastness of the sea, the knowledge it holds, and the way it remains intricately tied to the life of the islands, it's impossible to truly separate the land from the sea. They are, in the truest sense, inseparable. It's in this moment of quiet reflection that you realize how little separation there is between a voyage and its return. The notion of homecoming is not simply about stepping back onto land, but about a deeper understanding of the journey's purpose. The Polynesians didn't just sail to explore, they sailed to connect. Their travels across the Pacific weren't merely about reaching new islands or discovering new lands. They were about sustaining the deep relationships between the people and their environment. The journey, no matter how long, was always seen as a process of learning, not just from the sea, but also from the islands they encountered. Each stop along the way taught them something new about the ocean's moods, the stars' alignment, and the subtle clues that linked them to the world. Navigating wasn't just a matter of survival or necessity. It was a cultural practice, an art, a science, and a deeply spiritual pursuit. And while you've reached this island, the truth is that you're never really done with the journey. Every island you visit, every stretch of open water you cross, adds another layer to the ongoing story of voyaging. The cycle of learning, adapting, and returning continues. A return to land isn't the end of the voyage. It's a pause, a place of rest where the lessons learned from the sea can be reflected upon and shared with the community. Historians still debate what the ultimate purpose of these extensive voyages was. Some say it was about survival and securing new lands for growing populations. Others believe it was an effort to maintain and strengthen cultural ties between distant islands. Regardless of the reason, it's clear that the Pacific wasn't a vast, empty ocean to be feared. It was a highway, a system of connection that brought people closer together. The sea was the glue that held the disparate islands of Polynesia together. Without it, there would have been no communication, no exchange of goods, no cultural unity. The ocean made all of it possible. Consider for a moment the immense cultural and economic exchange that would have taken place as voyagers crossed between islands. The Polynesians didn't just trade physical goods. They traded ideas, stories, and practices. The act of voyaging itself became a form of cultural transmission. As a voyager arrived on a new island, they would share their knowledge, their experiences, and their understanding of the sea with the people they encountered. In turn, they would take away new insights, new methods of farming, new tools, new legends to carry with them on their next journey. This idea of voyaging as an exchange, as a shared learning experience, was central to the Polynesian way of life. A journey across the ocean wasn't just a personal undertaking. It was a collective cultural act that strengthened the bonds between islands and people. These voyages were more than just movements across the water. They were movements of knowledge, culture, and identity. It was the sea that allowed the Polynesians to create a shared cultural identity across the vast distances of the Pacific. Yet, as much as voyaging was about exchange and connection, it was also about maintaining a certain balance. The Polynesians' understanding of the natural world was rooted in the concept of pono, balance, righteousness. Navigating wasn't just about making sure you reached your destination. It was about doing so in a way that respected the sea, the stars, and the islands themselves. Every journey, every decision made at sea was part of a larger cultural practice that ensured harmony between the people and the natural world. This balance wasn't just an ethical principle, it was an essential part of their survival. Historians still debate how much pono shaped the actual navigation process. Some believe it was a concept more focused on morality, ensuring voyagers respected the spirits of the sea and land, while others argue that it was deeply integrated into the technical aspects of voyaging. Was it the pono of the navigators that helped them make decisions about when to set sail, when to wait, and when to change course based on the signs around them? Or was pono more of a spiritual guideline, ensuring that voyaging was done with respect and in alignment with the natural rhythms of the earth? Either way, it's clear that balance, harmony, and respect for the environment were critical to Polynesian navigation. As you sit on the shore watching the ocean stretch into infinity, you begin to understand that there is no real separation between the land, the sea, and the sky. The stars above are not just distant objects. They are guiding lights, ancestors, and companions. The ocean is not just a vast, empty space. It's a living entity, one that you've come to know intimately. And the land is not just a final destination. It's a place where the voyage is reflected upon, where the wisdom of the journey is shared, and where the connection to the sea is reaffirmed. In this way, the Polynesian voyaging tradition isn't just about traveling from one place to another, it's about connecting to the greater world around you. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of all things, from the smallest ripple on the ocean's surface to the vast expanse of the stars above. It's about balance, respect, and a profound relationship with the natural world that continues to echo through the generations. And so, as you stand at the water's edge, you realize that your journey is not truly over. You've merely come full circle. The lessons of the sea, the stars, and the land have become part of you, and now you will carry them forward. Every journey you take, every voyage you make, will be a continuation of the same eternal rhythm, a rhythm that has been carried across the Pacific for thousands of years. As you walk along the shoreline, the cool night air brushes against your skin, and the rhythmic sound of the waves seems almost meditative. Each wave is a reminder of the journey you've just undertaken, both the physical voyage across the ocean and the deeper, more spiritual journey into the heart of Polynesian navigation. The ocean, once vast and intimidating, now feels familiar. You've learned its language, and it speaks to you in a way that it once spoke to the great navigators of old. The stars above you are no longer distant points of light. They are your guides, your companions on this journey. It's in these quiet moments under the vast sky that you truly begin to understand how Polynesian voyaging was as much about the journey within as it was about the journey across the water. The art of navigation wasn't just about crossing the ocean. It was about achieving a deeper connection with the natural world, with the sea, the sky, and the land. The Polynesians understood this on a profound level. They saw their voyages not as mere travel from point A to point B, but as a way of immersing themselves in the rhythm of the world around them, of finding balance and meaning in every wave and every breeze. The stars above, you realize, are not just a map. They are a guide to understanding the cosmos. The Polynesians were deeply spiritual people, and their connection to the stars was not just practical, it was metaphysical. The stars represented the spirits of ancestors who had sailed before them, guiding the voyagers on their own journeys. To navigate by the stars was to connect with those who came before, to honor them, and to be a part of something much larger than yourself. It was a relationship not just with the stars themselves, but with the collective knowledge and spirit of the Polynesian people. Historians still argue whether this spiritual connection to the stars was shared universally across all Polynesian cultures or whether it varied from island to island. Some scholars suggest that the connection to the stars was more symbolic in certain regions, while in others it was an essential part of every voyage. What is clear, however, is that the stars were integral to the practice of wayfinding, and for those who truly understood their significance, the journey was about more than navigation. It was about becoming one with the universe. As you continue your walk along the shoreline, you think about the stories you've heard, the myths and legends that have been passed down through generations. These stories, often shared in the form of songs or chants, weren't just entertainment. They were the key to understanding the navigation system. They were not only vessels for cultural knowledge, but also for practical information. The stars, the winds, the swells, the tides, they were all embedded in the stories, passed down from one generation to the next. The songs were the maps, and the navigators were the interpreters, reading the waves, the stars, and the winds as they followed the path set before them by their ancestors. This knowledge wasn't just intellectual, it was embodied. When a navigator sailed across the ocean, they weren't just remembering what they had learned. They were physically experiencing the journey, feeling the winds and the waves, adjusting to the ever-changing environment around them. The knowledge of the sea was not something you could read in a book. It was something you had to live, something you had to become. The stars weren't just objects in the sky. They were part of the fabric of life, guiding and shaping the course of every journey. Historians still debate whether the Polynesians relied solely on the mental maps they carried in their minds or if they used physical objects like stick charts to aid in navigation. The stick charts, made of palm fronds and shells, were designed to represent the ocean's swells and the positions of the islands. Some scholars believe that these charts were a vital tool for teaching and training new navigators, while others argue that they were merely symbolic, with the true navigation taking place within the mind. What's undeniable is that the Polynesians had an unparalleled ability to read the ocean, to understand its patterns, and to navigate with incredible accuracy over vast distances. As you stand on the shore, gazing out at the ocean that stretches endlessly before you, you begin to appreciate the depth of knowledge that went into the art of Polynesian navigation. It was not just a practical skill, it was a philosophy, a way of understanding the world and one's place in it. The navigators didn't see themselves as masters of the sea. They saw themselves as partners with the sea. They understood that to navigate successfully, you had to be in tune with the natural world, with the tides, the winds, and the stars. The journey was about finding balance, about aligning yourself with the forces of nature rather than trying to control them. This philosophy of balance was central to the concept of pono, the Hawaiian word for righteousness or balance. The idea of pono wasn't just a moral code, it was a way of being in harmony with the world around you. Navigators, in their respect for the sea and the stars, were embodying pono. They weren't just seeking to reach an island, they were seeking to move through the world in a way that was in harmony with the natural rhythms of the earth. The ocean wasn't something to be conquered, it was something to be understood and respected. As you continue to stand by the water, reflecting on the journey you've just undertaken, you realize that the lessons of the sea go far beyond navigation. The Polynesians didn't just travel the ocean, they lived with it. Their understanding of the natural world was rooted in the belief that everything in the world was interconnected. The sea, the stars, the wind, and the land, they were all part of a larger system, a system that required respect, balance, and understanding. The journey across the Pacific was not just about reaching a destination. It was about connecting to the universe, understanding the delicate balance of the natural world, and finding one's place within it. As you feel the sand beneath your feet and the breeze on your face, you understand that your journey, though physically complete, is never truly finished. Just as the Polynesians voyaged not just to travel but to connect, so too will your own understanding of the world continue to grow and evolve with each new step you take. As the days pass on the island, the sense of calm that settles around you grows deeper. You're no longer just an observer of this world. You've become a participant in the ongoing dance between the sea, the sky, and the land. The ocean, once a vast and unpredictable entity, now feels like a familiar companion, one whose moods you've learned to read. The stars that guided your journey are no longer distant points of light. They are now friends, guides that have shown you the way. You've come to realize that the true essence of Polynesian navigation lies not just in crossing distances, but in creating a deeper connection with the world around you. This understanding of connection, of the intertwining of all things, was at the heart of Polynesian voyaging. The Polynesians didn't see themselves as separate from the ocean, the stars, or the land. They were part of an intricate living system where everything was interconnected. When they set out on a voyage, they didn't just leave the island, they carried the spirit of that island with them. And when they returned, they brought back not just goods or knowledge, but the essence of the journey itself. Historians still debate how the Polynesians viewed the world around them. Some argue that their understanding of the universe was shaped by their immediate surroundings, the islands, the stars, the ocean. Others believe that their world was far more expansive, that they saw themselves as part of a much larger cosmic system, one that stretched from the stars above to the deepest parts of the ocean below. What is clear is that Polynesians had an extraordinary ability to perceive the interconnectedness of all things. They didn't simply navigate across the ocean, they navigated through the natural world itself with a profound understanding of how each element interacted with the other. The idea of balance and harmony was central to this worldview. Navigating the ocean wasn't just about using tools to reach a destination. It was about moving in a way that respected the rhythms of the natural world. The Polynesians understood that to journey successfully, you had to be in tune with the world around you. They didn't simply follow the stars, They understood their role in the vast cosmic order. Every wave, every breeze, every shift in the wind was a part of the larger system that they were a part of. Imagine being a navigator in this world, where everything around you is speaking to you. The ocean, with its swells and tides, tells you where to go, while the stars above guide your course. The wind shifts, and you feel the subtle change, an indication that a storm is approaching or that land is near. You don't just see these changes, you feel them. They become a part of you. As natural as breathing, the stars, the wind, the waves, they are not separate from you. They are your guides, your companions, your teachers. Historians still debate the specifics of how the Polynesians passed down their navigation knowledge, but it's clear that this knowledge wasn't just taught in terms of technical skills. It was embedded in the culture itself. It was passed down through stories, songs, and rituals, with each generation of navigators learning not just how to use the stars and the sea, but how to live in harmony with them. Every journey was an opportunity to learn, to connect with the natural world, and to pass on that knowledge to future generations. These stories were more than just legends. They were the foundation of Polynesian wayfinding. Each story, each chant, carried with it the wisdom of the ancestors, teaching navigators how to read the signs of the world around them. They were maps in the form of songs, guiding the voyagers across the Pacific. These oral traditions ensured that knowledge was passed down intact from one generation to the next. The stars, the tides, the winds, they were all part of the stories, and the stories were part of the voyaging. The ocean wasn't just a physical space to cross. It was a space of connection, where voyagers forged relationships with the elements. The sea, the stars, the wind, and the birds, they were all part of the same system. And to navigate successfully, you had to understand and respect each element. The Polynesians didn't just navigate across the ocean, they navigated through the very fabric of the natural world. Every wave, every breeze, every star in the sky was a clue, a guide that helped them understand their place in the universe. As you continue to reflect on your journey, you realize that this understanding of connection is at the core of everything the Polynesians did. It wasn't just about the physical act of navigating. It was about understanding the world as an interconnected whole. The journey was never just about getting from one place to another. It was about becoming one with the world around you, listening to the stories told by the stars in the ocean and learning to move in harmony with them. And as the stars twinkle above you, you understand that your journey, like all journeys, is part of a much larger story. The voyaging tradition of the Polynesians didn't just shape the past, it continues to shape the future. The lessons learned from the sea, the stars, and the land are still relevant today. The Polynesian way of navigating wasn't just about traveling across the Pacific. It was about finding balance, respecting the natural world, and understanding our place within it. It's a story that continues to be told, passed down through generations, and now it's your story too. The rhythm of the waves continues to lull you into a peaceful trance as you reflect on the deep connection the Polynesians shared with the sea. The island you stand on now and the ocean that stretches endlessly beyond it are more than just places to them. They are living, breathing entities with which they exist in a delicate balance. As the stars twinkle in the clear sky, you realize that this balance was not only about surviving the harshness of the open ocean, but about thriving in harmony with the environment. You start to grasp the full significance of Polynesian voyaging. For these ancient sailors, the journey was not a simple means of transportation. It was a dialogue between the self and the environment, a conversation with the ocean, the stars, the winds, and the very earth itself. Every voyage was a pilgrimage, a deep spiritual journey that allowed them to understand their place in the vast expanse of the world. The navigator was not merely a traveler, but a mediator between the natural world and the human world, moving in sync with the rhythms of the ocean and the cosmos. The wayfinders, as they were called, didn't just interpret the movements of the stars and the winds, they were deeply connected to them. Each island visited, each sea crossed, became a part of the navigator's personal map, a mental map that didn't simply chart distances, but also encapsulated the emotions, the spirituality, and the experiences of the journey. This wasn't just about reaching a destination, it was about becoming one with the journey itself. Historians still argue over how much of this deep connection was intentional or mystical. Some suggest that it was simply the result of years of rigorous training, while others believe that the Polynesians' success in navigating vast distances was more than just skill. It was a deeper, almost supernatural understanding of the forces at play. Perhaps, as some scholars suggest, the navigators were attuned to forces that are beyond our modern comprehension, listening not only to the wind and the waves, but to something much deeper, something ancient that connected them to the world. One thing is certain: the Polynesians didn't just sail the oceans, they understood the ocean's soul. They didn't just follow the stars, they danced with them. To be a navigator was not merely a role, it was a calling, a vocation that required the deep integration of knowledge, spirituality, and intuition. The journey was not just an act of survival, it was an act of reverence. Reverence for the sea, for the stars, for the ancestors, and for the sacred bond that connected all life. It was about being guided by the wisdom of the past while embracing the unknown future that lay ahead. As you stand there, gazing out at the endless horizon, you realize that the practice of Polynesian navigation goes beyond mere travel. It was about transformation. The act of voyaging was as much about self-discovery as it was about discovering new lands. The isolation of the open sea, with its infinite horizon and constant challenge, forced the navigator to look inward as much as outward. The journey was as much about understanding the depths of the self as it was about charting the expanse of the ocean. The stars above weren't just guides. They were reflections of the navigator's own inner wisdom. The ocean wasn't just an expanse of water. It was a mirror that reflected the soul. Historians still question whether the Polynesians were aware of the enormity of what they had accomplished. While the achievements of these navigators are undeniably remarkable, it's important to remember that their voyages were part of a much broader cultural framework. The Polynesians were not just explorers, they were part of a larger cultural and spiritual community that saw their connection to the natural world as vital to their very existence. The seas were the pathways of their ancestors, and to navigate them was not just about physical prowess, but spiritual alignment. The sense of inner peace that you feel now, standing on this island with the ocean stretching out before you, begins to make sense. It's as if you've experienced this journey not only physically, but spiritually. The sense of accomplishment, of connection, of oneness with the natural world, all mirrors what the Polynesian voyagers must have felt as they reached their destinations. Their voyages were not about conquest or domination. They were about finding unity. Unity with nature, unity with the stars, unity with each other. And now, as you look out into the distance, the stars above you seem to shimmer with even greater significance. They are not merely markers in the sky. They are companions on a shared journey. The ocean below, rolling gently in the night, is not a barrier, but a connector. A vast sacred bridge that links islands, people, and cultures across the Pacific. Your journey has now become a continuation of this shared history, a history of exploration, of connection, and of reverence. The Polynesian way of voyaging is not simply a relic of the past. It is a living, breathing tradition that continues to shape the world today. Modern navigators, like those who sailed the Hokulea and other traditional vessels, are reviving this ancient knowledge, not as a form of nostalgia, but as a way of reconnecting with the world in a deeper, more meaningful way. In a world of GPS systems and digital maps, the ancient practice of wayfinding has become a spiritual journey, a journey that helps us remember that the most important map is the one inside ourselves. And as you stand on the beach, the waves still lapping gently at your feet, you realize that the stars, the sea, and the land are not separate from you. They are you. They are the collective memory of every voyager who came before you, every navigator who read the stars, every sailor who felt the pull of the tides. The ocean is not just a place to travel through. It is a living, breathing entity that shapes and sustains life. And in navigating it, you too are shaped. Just as the Polynesians once did, you've connected with the world in a deeper, more profound way. You've become a part of its ongoing, eternal rhythm. As the days pass, the island becomes more familiar to you. yet you still feel the call of the sea. It's as if the ocean has become a part of you, an unspoken connection that pulls you toward it. You've learned so much from the water, how to read the waves, to trust the winds, to understand the subtle shifts in the sky. But there's still a deeper understanding to be gained, something that goes beyond the techniques and skills of navigation. It's the knowledge that the journey itself is an ongoing process, an endless cycle of learning, adapting, and discovering. For the Polynesians, this journey was never about mastery or conquest. It was about understanding and reverence. Every journey, every voyage across the Pacific was a way of participating in something far larger than themselves. These navigators didn't just cross the ocean. They participated in a cosmic dance, moving in sync with the stars, the wind, and the waves. They weren't separate from the sea. They were a part of it. This interconnectedness was what made their voyaging so unique and profound. The more you reflect on this, the more you begin to see how the Polynesians' approach to the sea is so different from our own. Today, when we think of exploration, we often think of conquering new frontiers, mapping unknown lands, claiming new territories. But for the Polynesians, exploration wasn't about dominance, it was about connection. Every new island was not just a destination, but a new relationship, a new chapter in the ongoing dialogue between the people and the natural world. The ocean, the stars, the land, they weren't obstacles to be overcome. They were partners to be respected and understood. Historians still argue over the motives behind these long voyages. Was it simply necessity, driven by the search for resources, new land, or new trade routes? Or was it driven by a deeper need to connect, to expand the cultural and spiritual boundaries of the Polynesian world? It's likely that it was a combination of both. But what's certain is that voyaging was never just a physical act. It was a spiritual and cultural journey, one that enriched the lives of those who sailed upon the ocean. In the modern world, it's easy to forget how deeply the natural world is interconnected. We live in a time of rapid technological advancement, where most of our journeys are planned with precision, guided by GPS coordinates, and aided by the most sophisticated technology. But in the time of the Polynesians, the journey was not just about reaching a destination. It was about the process of connecting with the world. The ocean was a teacher, the stars were guides, and the land was a reminder of the unity of all things. Imagine what it would be like to live in a world where your every move, every decision is guided by the rhythms of the natural world. Imagine being so attuned to the wind and the waves that you could tell where you were, not by looking at a map, but by feeling the direction of the swells beneath you. Imagine knowing that the stars above are not just lights in the sky, but ancient guides, showing you the way forward, connecting you to the past and the future. For the Polynesians, this deep understanding of the natural world was not just a practical skill, it was a way of life. To navigate the ocean was to participate in a sacred tradition, one that transcended time and space. The stories, songs, and chants that passed down navigational knowledge were not just educational tools. They were a way of ensuring that the connection between the voyagers and the natural world was maintained, that the knowledge of the ocean, the stars, and the winds would never be lost. Historians still debate the precise methods that the Polynesians used to pass down their navigational knowledge. Some suggest that they used a system of mental maps, relying on their memories to chart their courses across the ocean. Others believe that the physical charts, made of palm fronds and shells, were used as teaching tools, helping young navigators learn the complex patterns of the ocean. What's clear is that the knowledge was passed down carefully, generation by generation, ensuring that future voyagers would be able to navigate the vast Pacific as their ancestors had done. As you sit by the water's edge, the sun dipping below the horizon, you understand that this knowledge wasn't just about survival, it was about culture, about identity, about keeping the connection to the natural world alive. The ocean wasn't just a place to cross, it was a place to engage with, to learn from, and to honor. It was a living entity that deserved respect and reverence, just as the stars and the land did. The ocean for the Polynesians was not a barrier, but a bridge, a pathway to new relationships, new understandings, and new adventures. You realize that in many ways, the true mastery of Polynesian navigation was not in the physical skills of sailing, but in the spiritual and cultural understanding of the world. The act of voyaging was an act of harmony, a way of participating in the natural rhythms of the universe. The sea was not an adversary to be conquered, it was a partner to be understood. The stars were not distant bodies, they were companions, guides, and ancestors leading the way across the vast ocean. Historians still marvel at the precision with which the Polynesians navigated across such vast distances without the use of modern instruments. But what we often overlook is the incredible depth of their connection to the world around them. They didn't just navigate across the ocean, they navigated through life, through time, through the very essence of the universe. Their journeys weren't just about reaching new lands, they were about understanding their place in the cosmos. As you stand on the shore, the sound of the waves filling the air, you understand that the Polynesians' relationship with the sea was not just about movement, it was about meaning. Every wave, every gust of wind, every star in the sky had a story to tell. And now, as you continue your own journey, you realize that you too are part of that story, a part of the eternal rhythm of the natural world. The moon rises higher in the sky, casting a soft silver light across the landscape. The ocean, which has been your constant companion, now feels even more intimate, as if it understands the deep connection you've developed with it over the course of your journey. The stars above seem to twinkle with even more clarity, and you feel the wisdom of those who have sailed these waters before you, guiding you, watching over you. The Polynesian navigators didn't just see the ocean, they felt it. And now, in the stillness of the night, you begin to understand how they did so. For them, the ocean wasn't simply a vast expanse to cross. It was a living, breathing entity full of signs, stories, and lessons. They navigated not only with their minds, reading the stars and the tides, but with their spirits, attuned to the deep rhythms of the world. Every wave, every gust of wind, every cloud formation was part of a larger story, one that told them where to go, how to get there, and when to turn back. The Polynesians didn't just look to the stars for guidance. They also looked to the natural world around them, using the animals, the tides, and even the wind to guide their course. They knew how to read the behavior of birds, whose flight patterns often indicated the proximity of land. They understood how the color of the ocean changed as they approached an island. They could sense the slight shifts in the wind that signaled a storm or the arrival of calmer seas. All of this knowledge was passed down through generations, not as written records, but as living, breathing knowledge, woven into the fabric of their culture through stories, chants, and rituals. Historians still debate how much of this knowledge was purely empirical versus intuitive. Some scholars believe that it was the result of careful observation over many generations, an accumulated understanding of the ocean's patterns and rhythms. Others argue that the Polynesians had a more spiritual connection to the world around them, allowing them to sense things beyond the realm of human understanding. Whether through learned observation or a deeper intuitive connection, what's clear is that these navigators were masters of their environment in a way that modern explorers can only dream of. But perhaps the most incredible thing about Polynesian navigation was how it tied people together. The voyages weren't just about reaching a destination. They were about maintaining and strengthening connections between people, islands, and cultures. Voyaging was a way of ensuring that no one was truly isolated, that there was always a link between communities, no matter how far apart they were. The ocean was the bridge between them, a space that allowed for the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture. This system of connectivity wasn't limited to just the exchange of material goods. The Polynesians saw the ocean as a path of shared history, a continuous journey that connected every island, every village, every person. Every time a navigator set sail, they were not just following a course. They were continuing a tradition that had been passed down for centuries. Each journey was a thread in a larger tapestry, a living, breathing history that linked generations of voyagers together. The navigators' mental maps were as much cultural as they were geographical. They didn't just chart the islands, they charted the stories, the relationships, and the histories that connected them. The Pacific wasn't a series of isolated islands. It was a connected network, with each island playing a role in the larger cultural system. When one person sailed to a distant land, they weren't just traveling, they were reuniting, reconnecting, and reestablishing the bonds that had been woven through generations of voyaging. In that moment of reflection, standing on the shore with the moonlight casting long shadows across the sand, you realize that this ancient way of life wasn't just a practical method of navigation, it was a way of living. The connection between the people, the land, and the sea wasn't just a matter of necessity. It was a matter of identity, of belonging. The sea was not something to be conquered or controlled. It was something to be understood, respected, and revered. And in doing so, the Polynesians were able to create a deep, lasting connection to the world around them. Historians still question how much of this knowledge has been lost in the modern era. With the advent of modern navigation tools, GPS systems, and satellite technology, it's easy to forget the profound connection that ancient navigators had with the sea. But in recent years, there has been a resurgence of interest in traditional navigation methods. Modern sailors, inspired by the Polynesian wayfinding techniques, have begun to revive these ancient practices, not just as a way of navigating the seas, but as a way of reconnecting with the world. As you stand on the beach, the ocean stretching out before you, you realize that the journey isn't over. It's just begun. You've gained new insights into how the Polynesians navigated the Pacific, but the true wisdom of their wayfinding system can only be fully understood through experience. The stars, the tides, the wind, they're not just guides, they're teachers. And to learn from them, to truly understand the deep connection between all things, you must continue the journey. The Polynesians didn't just navigate the oceans, they navigated life. Every voyage was a lesson, a test of their skills, their knowledge, and their connection to the world around them. The ocean wasn't just a physical space to be crossed, it was a spiritual journey, one that required patience, intuition, and respect for the natural world. As you stand by the water's edge, the stars above you and the waves at your feet, you feel the pull of that journey, an eternal journey that continues to shape the world today. The quiet hum of the island is now your constant companion, and it feels as though the world has slowed down around you. The ocean, once an intimidating force, now feels like a vast expanse of possibilities. The lessons of the voyagers, the way they used the stars, the wind, the waves to guide them, continue to echo in your mind. As you gaze out at the endless horizon, you're struck by how different your perspective is now. The vastness of the ocean no longer feels like an impassable barrier, but a living map, one that connects you to a history of explorers, adventurers, and wayfinders who have traveled this very path. Navigating the Pacific wasn't just about crossing the ocean. It was about participating in a larger cosmic dance, where each movement, each wave, and each gust of wind held meaning. The Polynesians didn't merely sail from island to island. They participated in an eternal dialogue with nature. They learned to listen to the signs around them, the direction of the wind, the behavior of the sea creatures, the position of the stars. These were not just practical tools, they were part of a spiritual system that guided them, not just on their physical journey, but on their personal, cultural, and spiritual journeys as well. This understanding begins to sink in deeper as you sit by the water, reflecting on the journey you've just taken. It wasn't just about sailing across the Pacific, it was about becoming one with the ocean. The stars, the tides, the swells, these were not just navigational markers. They were living beings, companions on the voyage. And you, just like the ancient navigators, were not merely crossing the sea. You were in a relationship with it, learning from it, growing with it. Historians still debate the spiritual elements of Polynesian navigation and whether voyaging was purely about practicality or also about deeper, sacred meaning. Many believe that it was a combination of both. The act of navigating wasn't just about survival, it was about connecting with the universe in a way that few other cultures did. For the Polynesians, voyaging was an essential part of their spiritual practice. It was a way of honoring the ancestors, of ensuring the continuity of culture, and of understanding the deeper connection between people and the natural world. As you sit there, feeling the sand beneath your feet, the rhythmic crash of the waves, and the vastness of the ocean stretching out before you, it becomes clear that the Polynesians' approach to the world was deeply holistic. They didn't separate their spiritual beliefs from their practical skills. They saw the two as inseparable. The ocean was a sacred space, and navigating it was an act of reverence. Each journey was a way of honoring the gods, the ancestors, and the natural world. In many ways, this connection to the natural world is something that has been lost in the modern age. Today, most of us rely on technology, GPS systems, and digital maps to navigate the world. And we've lost the deep intuitive connection that ancient sailors had with their environment. But as you sit here, thinking about the journey you've just completed, you begin to feel a sense of renewal, a realization that perhaps the most important part of navigation isn't just the physical skill, it's the spiritual understanding of the world around you. The Polynesians didn't just navigate to find land, they navigated to find themselves, to reconnect with the universe, and to understand their place in it. Historians still wonder whether the Polynesians fully realized the significance of their navigational skills. Were they consciously aware of the spiritual dimensions of their voyages, or was it something they simply lived, something that became second nature over generations? Regardless of the answer, what's clear is that their approach to navigation was far more than a technical skill. It was a way of seeing the world. It was about understanding that the ocean was not just a place to cross, but a place to experience, to learn, and to honor. The mental maps that the Polynesians created weren't just a set of geographical coordinates. They were an intricate network of stories, rituals, and teachings. They understood that the stars were not just points of light, but living guides that held the wisdom of the ancestors. The ocean wasn't just a vast expanse to be navigated. It was a living entity filled with lessons and signs. Every journey was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to connect with the larger cosmic order. As you think about this, you realize that the ocean you've crossed, the stars you followed, and the land you've arrived at are all part of a larger story, a story that spans generations, cultures, and time itself. The journey of the Polynesian navigators is not just a thing of the past. It is a living legacy, one that continues to inspire and guide modern voyagers today. The knowledge of the sea, of the stars, of the winds is still alive. It's not just in the history books. It's in the hearts of those who still sail these waters, who still honor the teachings of the wayfinders. As you sit quietly on the beach, the sound of the waves becomes a reminder of this ongoing story. You are part of this tradition now, connected to the voyagers who came before you and to those who will follow in your wake. The journey isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about honoring the path, respecting the forces of nature, and learning from them. And just as the Polynesians once navigated across vast open waters with only the stars and their own intuition to guide them, you now understand that true navigation is about more than just maps. It's about finding your place in the greater story of the world. The island is quiet now, with only the soft murmurs of the ocean and the gentle rustling of palm leaves in the breeze. But in your mind, the waves are still alive, still carrying you on an eternal journey across time and space. The teachings of the Polynesian navigators echo in your heart. The way they understood the rhythms of the ocean, the way they lived in sync with the stars, it all seems so distant, yet so immediate. You've crossed a physical distance. But the true voyage has been one inward, a journey into the heart of navigation itself, into the understanding that the world is not a series of disconnected elements, but a vast and interconnected system where everything affects everything else. The deeper you reflect, the more you realize that the Polynesians didn't just chart the ocean, they charted the very essence of existence. They knew that to truly navigate was to understand the pulse of the universe. The stars weren't just guides, they were a connection to the past, the ancestors, the eternal cycle of life. The ocean wasn't just a barrier to overcome, it was a teacher, a partner that shared its wisdom with those who were willing to listen, to learn, to observe. Every wave, every swell, every gust of wind carried a message, a story waiting to be deciphered. For the Polynesians, to be a navigator was to hold a profound responsibility, not just for the physical well-being of those aboard, but for maintaining the sacred balance between humanity and the natural world. They didn't see themselves as conquerors of the sea, but as stewards of it. The ocean wasn't something to be exploited, it was something to be respected, to be understood in its fullness. In their voyages, the navigators didn't just chart new lands, they charted new relationships with the world around them. The act of voyaging was a deep spiritual practice, a way of reaffirming humanity's place within the great cycle of the natural world. Historians still debate whether the Polynesians' navigation techniques were purely based on empirical observation or whether they involved a deeper spiritual understanding of the universe. Some believe that the navigators' whole connection to the ocean was grounded in practical knowledge gained through generations of sailing, while others argue that the knowledge was more mystical, something intuitive and passed down through ritual and song. Regardless of the exact nature of this knowledge, what's clear is that it wasn't just technical, it was profoundly spiritual. Imagine standing at the bow of a canoe, the wind in your hair, the stars above you, and the vast ocean stretching out before you. You don't have a compass or a GPS device. Instead, you have the knowledge of the ancestors, passed down through generations, and the subtle cues from the ocean itself. The feel of the wind on your face, the way the waves shift beneath you, the position of the stars, they all tell you where you are, where you're headed, and how to adjust your course if needed. This is the art of wayfinding, not a reliance on technology, but an intimate connection with the environment. As you think about this, you realize that the Polynesians' ability to navigate was not just about physical skill. It was about an understanding of the natural world so profound that it became an inseparable part of who they were. To navigate was to participate in the cosmos itself, to move through the universe in harmony with the stars, the winds, and the sea. And this knowledge wasn't limited to the navigators. It was a shared wisdom passed down to the entire community. Everyone had a role to play, whether it was in keeping the boat steady, gathering provisions, or simply being there to observe and learn. It was a collective effort, with everyone playing a part in the journey. Historians continue to explore the spiritual dimensions of Polynesian voyaging, and there's much we don't know. But one thing is certain, the navigators didn't simply chart the physical world, they charted the spiritual one as well. They understood that the ocean, the stars, and the land were not separate entities, but part of a larger interconnected system. They moved with the natural world, not against it. They didn't dominate the ocean. They respected it, listened to it, and worked with it. As you sit on the beach, the sound of the waves growing fainter with each passing moment, you understand that your journey, too, is not just a physical one. It's about connecting with something larger than yourself, something eternal. It's about understanding your place in the world, in the universe, and in the great cycle of life. And the more you reflect on this, the more you realize that the lessons of the Polynesian navigators are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. In a world of digital maps, GPS systems, and satellite navigation, it's easy to forget that true navigation is not just about finding a destination. It's about understanding the journey, feeling the rhythms of the world around you, and moving through it with respect, balance, and reverence. The Polynesians didn't just teach us how to navigate the seas. They taught us how to navigate life itself. They showed us that the world is not a series of isolated parts, but a connected whole, where every element, every wave, every gust of wind, every star in the sky plays a role in the larger story. They taught us that to truly navigate is to be in harmony with the world around us, to understand our place within the grand cycle of existence. As you stand once again by the water, the cool breeze on your face, and the sound of the ocean in your ears, you realize that your journey isn't over. The wisdom of the Polynesian navigators has become a part of you, and now it's your turn to carry that knowledge forward. The ocean still calls to you, the stars still guide you, and the journey continues. You are no longer just a voyager. You are part of a living, breathing tradition, one that has stretched across the Pacific for thousands of years and will continue for thousands more. As the soft murmur of the night air mixes with the deep sigh of the ocean, you feel the pull of the ancient tradition continue to resonate with you. The Polynesian way of navigating was never simply about crossing distances. It was about crossing into something deeper, something sacred. The sea was not just a vessel to transport people from one island to another. It was a connection to the spirits, the ancestors, and the very essence of the world itself. And as the stars above you twinkle like ancient guides, you begin to feel that connection in your own bones, linking you to the very pulse of the universe. The ocean's call is always there, subtle yet insistent, reminding you that there is more to explore. But unlike the modern sense of exploration, where the focus is often on conquering new territories or achieving new feats, the Polynesians' explorations were about understanding the world. They didn't just seek to map new lands, they sought to understand the interconnectedness of all things. Every journey they embarked on was a pilgrimage, a way to honor the forces of nature, to engage in the ancient conversation between the sea, the sky, and the land. Now, with the sea stretching out before you, you understand that to navigate the ocean is to become a part of that conversation. To be a navigator was to listen deeply, not just to the wind or the stars, but to the deeper, subtler language of the natural world. The tides, the swells, the temperature of the water, every small change was a message, an invitation to understand more, to move in harmony with the universe. The Polynesian navigators had mastered this language, not through written words, but through the stories of the ancestors and the lived experience of the world around them. It is this deep, intimate connection with the natural world that makes Polynesian voyaging so extraordinary. While modern navigators rely on maps, satellites, and complex instruments, the ancient voyagers relied on something far more profound, their ability to feel and sense the world. They navigated not just by the stars, but by listening to the voice of the sea, feeling its pulse beneath their canoes. They moved in rhythm with the waves, adjusting their course as needed, constantly attuned to the subtle shifts in the environment. And in doing so, they learned to read the world in a way that few modern explorers can fathom. Historians still debate how these ancient navigators were able to achieve such remarkable feats of precision. Some suggest that they used a complex system of mental maps, building up a detailed internal understanding of the ocean, the tides, and the positions of the stars. Others argue that the navigators relied on more spiritual or intuitive practices, ways of perceiving the natural world that went beyond rational understanding. What is clear, however, is that their method of wayfinding was a deeply holistic practice, where the physical, mental, and spiritual were all interconnected. But as you sit by the water's edge, the ocean stretching out before you, it becomes clear that the real achievement of the Polynesian navigators wasn't just their ability to travel vast distances. It was their ability to do so with a profound understanding of their place in the world. They didn't just move across the Pacific, they moved through it, in harmony with it. They knew that the ocean wasn't an obstacle to be overcome. It was a partner in the journey, a sacred force that had to be respected and understood. In this way, the Polynesians saw their voyages as much more than just physical journeys. They were spiritual ones. Each island they discovered, each course they plotted, was a way of deepening their connection with the forces of nature. To them, navigation wasn't a means of achieving a goal. It was a means of participating in something larger than themselves. It was a way of engaging in the eternal dance between humanity and the natural world, moving together as one. Historians still argue whether the ancient navigators consciously understood the spiritual significance of their journeys, or whether it was simply an innate part of their culture. But what is certain is that the practice of voyaging was a deeply spiritual one. It was about honoring the ancestors, respecting the forces of nature, and understanding that the journey itself was as important as the destination. As you continue to reflect on this, you realize that the Polynesians didn't just sail the seas. They were in conversation with them. The ocean was alive with meaning, and the navigators understood that. Every wave, every gust of wind, every star in the sky was part of a larger story, a story that the voyagers were actively participating in. To navigate was to become one with that story, to move with the natural world instead of against it. The more you think about it, the more you realize that modern exploration has often lost this deeper understanding. We tend to focus on reaching new destinations, on conquering new frontiers, on pushing the boundaries of what we know. But the Polynesian way of voyaging was never about conquest. It was about connection. It was about being in tune with the world around you, understanding its rhythms, and respecting its power. It was a dance, not a battle. And as the moon rises higher in the sky, casting its light across the calm waters, you begin to feel that rhythm yourself. The ocean is no longer a vast, empty space. It's a living, breathing entity, a partner in the ongoing journey of existence. The stars are no longer distant, unreachable points of light. They are guides, companions, ancestors, leading you on your own voyage, wherever it may take you. You are part of the same story, a story that began long before you were born and will continue long after you've gone. The journey is never truly over. It is an eternal cycle, a continuous rhythm that connects all things. The ocean will continue to guide, the stars will continue to shine, and the journey will continue to unfold in ways that we can't yet imagine. But as you sit there, watching the waves break gently on the shore, you understand that you are a part of that eternal story, a story that links you to the voyagers of the past and those who will come after you. And the quiet of the island embraces you like an old friend. The rhythmic pulse of the ocean continues to echo in your mind, a reminder that the journey is far from over. The stars above seem to shine even brighter, their steady glow guiding you not just across the ocean, but through the story of your own existence. You have become part of that ancient tradition, a continuation of the voyaging spirit that has traveled the Pacific for thousands of years. As you reflect on the incredible journey of the Polynesian navigators, it becomes clear that they were not just crossing oceans, they were mapping the very nature of existence itself. Their voyages were never just about reaching new islands. They were about discovering the interconnectedness of all things. The ocean, the stars, the land, they were all part of a vast, living system, and the navigators understood this in a way that modern explorers often overlook. Their knowledge was not just a tool for survival, it was a philosophy, a way of seeing the world. The Polynesians' ability to navigate the vast expanses of the Pacific without the aid of modern instruments was not just a technical achievement, it was a spiritual one. They didn't just navigate by the stars, they lived in harmony with them. The stars were not just distant points of light, they were part of the family, guiding the way with ancient wisdom passed down through generations. The ocean was not a vast, empty space to be crossed. It was a living, breathing entity that could teach you, guide you, and challenge you. The winds, the tides, the waves, they were not mere obstacles. They were partners in the journey. As you sit by the water, the moon's light dancing on the surface, you begin to realize that the Polynesians' view of navigation wasn't just about getting from one place to another. It was about finding your place in the world, your relationship with the natural world, and understanding that every journey is part of something much larger. Their voyages were not just physical, they were spiritual, cultural, and intellectual. The act of voyaging was a way of understanding your connection to the universe and to the forces that shape it. It was an ongoing dialogue between the self and the natural world, a conversation that continues to echo in the waves and the stars. In today's world, it's easy to forget the wisdom of the Polynesians. We rely on technology to guide us, to map our way across the earth. We no longer feel the wind on our faces and the stars above us in the same way. But as you reflect on the journey, you realize that the ancient wayfinders had something we've lost, a deep, intuitive understanding of the world. Their way of navigating wasn't just a skill, it was a way of living, a way of engaging with the natural world in a way that honored its power and mystery. They saw the world not as something to be controlled or conquered, but as something to be understood, respected, and lived in harmony with. The journey you've taken from the land to the sea and back again is not just a story about the Polynesians, it's a story about us all. The lessons of wayfinding, of respect, connection, and harmony with the natural world are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. In a world where technology often separates us from the natural world, where we rely on machines to do the work that once required deep connection and understanding, it's important to remember the wisdom of the past. Historians still argue whether the Polynesians fully realized the depth of their connection to the natural world. Were they consciously aware of their place in the cosmos, or was it simply an innate part of their culture? Some believe that their spiritual connection to the stars, the ocean, and the winds was as much a part of their navigation as the technical knowledge. Others argue that their ability to navigate was purely the result of observation, training, and adaptation. What's clear, though, is that their connection to the world was deep and profound. They didn't just use the stars to guide them, they saw the stars as a part of themselves. They didn't just rely on the winds, they moved with them, in rhythm, in harmony. As you sit by the water watching the light of the moon shimmer on the waves, you begin to understand that the most important journey is the one we take within ourselves. The Polynesians didn't just navigate the ocean, they navigated their own inner landscapes. Their understanding of the world was not separate from their understanding of themselves. They were part of the earth, the sea, and the sky, and in navigating those forces, they navigated their own souls. This perhaps is the deepest lesson of all, that the journey is never just about where you are going. It's about how you are moving through the world, how you are listening to it, how you are in tune with it. And so, as you stand there, the ocean stretching out before you, you realize that the journey is ongoing. The stars are still above you, the ocean still calls to you, and you are still moving through life, guided by the wisdom of the past and the present. The wayfinding traditions of the Polynesians are not just relics of the past, they are living, breathing practices that continue to guide us today. And just as the voyagers of old charted their course across the vast Pacific, so too do we chart our own course across the oceans of our lives. The stars are still our guides, the ocean is still our partner, and the journey continues. As you move forward, you carry with you the wisdom of those who came before you, those ancient voyagers who understood that true navigation is not just about crossing physical distances, but about finding balance, respect, and harmony in every step of the journey. As you watch the stars gradually shift across the night sky, you're struck by a deep, unspoken truth. The journey is never over. The Polynesians understood this better than anyone. For them, the act of voyaging was not just about reaching new lands. It was about engaging with the world on a profound level, connecting to it, learning from it, and respecting it. And now you understand that this deep connection to the natural world wasn't just reserved for those ancient navigators. It's still there, alive and waiting for anyone willing to listen. The stars above are more than just ancient guides. They are also our constant companions, reminding us of the greater cosmic rhythm that connects all of us. In the vastness of the Pacific, these stars served as more than just markers for wayfinding. They were, and still are, beacons that represent something deeper, a connection to our ancestors, to the earth, to the universe itself. The Polynesians didn't just follow the stars, they became them. They integrated the stars into their very identity, weaving them into the fabric of their culture, so that navigating wasn't just a skill, it was a way of living in harmony with the cosmos. You realize as you sit by the water that the ocean too has been an integral part of this shared human experience. The sea has always been there, constant and unyielding, shaping the people who live by it. The Polynesians didn't conquer the ocean, they coexisted with it. Every voyage they undertook was a form of communication with the sea, learning from it, adapting to it, and respecting it in a way that modern navigators seldom do today. The ocean was not a challenge to be defeated, but a partner in the journey, a guide in its own right, teaching the voyagers to read its moods and temperaments with the subtlety of a longtime companion. But what's even more remarkable is how the lessons of the Polynesians are still relevant today. In a world dominated by technology, where every journey is now plotted with pinpoint precision on digital maps, we've lost something essential, the ability to connect with the world around us in the way the ancient voyagers did. We've traded in our internal compasses for devices that tell us where to go, but at the cost of the deeper understanding that comes from listening to the rhythms of nature. Modern technology, while amazing, has distanced us from the raw, intuitive understanding of the natural world that the Polynesians embodied. Historians and scholars still try to grasp how the Polynesians were able to achieve such feats of navigation, often relying solely on their senses, their observations, and their deep connection to the world around them. While modern tools like GPS and satellites have revolutionized how we explore the world, the Polynesians' reliance on mental maps and celestial navigation speaks to a different kind of wisdom. They didn't just navigate the ocean with their eyes. They did it with their souls, attuned to the natural world in ways that seem almost mystical today. That is the beauty of Polynesian navigation. It was not just about getting from one place to another. It was about participating in something larger, something eternal. The stars weren't simply a guide. They were the map to a deeper understanding of existence itself. And as you sit there, watching the stars shimmer in the night sky, you feel that connection too. You are part of the same cosmos, moving through time and space with the same force of the universe that guided those ancient voyagers across the vast expanse of the Pacific. Perhaps that's why the Polynesians didn't just sail from one island to another. They were sailing through time, across the generations. Their voyages were not just about crossing oceans. They were about linking the present with the past, continuing the sacred dialogue between humanity and the natural world. The ocean was not a barrier. It was a bridge, connecting islands, cultures, and generations. And as you reflect on the journey you've just undertaken, you realize that you too are part of that bridge. The wisdom of the Polynesians has been passed down through the ages, and now it's your turn to carry it forward. Every journey you take, every decision you make, is part of that ongoing cycle. The stars are still your guides. The ocean still whispers its secrets to those who listen. And the natural world continues to offer its wisdom to those who seek it. The true lesson of Polynesian navigation isn't just about how to read the stars or the swells. It's about how to live in harmony with the world around you, how to find balance between the forces of nature, and how to understand that you are part of something much larger than yourself. The more you reflect on this, the more you understand that the art of navigation is more than just a method for finding your way. It's a philosophy for life. It teaches you to slow down, to listen, to be present, and to move through the world with intention and respect. In a world that often rushes us from one place to the next, the Polynesians remind us that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Every moment is an opportunity to connect, to learn, and to grow. As the night wears on and the ocean continues its eternal dance with the moon, you realize that the journey is never truly complete. It is cyclical, ongoing, ever-changing. And just like the Polynesians, you are part of that cycle, continuing to navigate through life, guided by the stars, the sea, and the eternal wisdom of the world. With each new step you take, you're not just moving forward, you're moving in rhythm with the universe, finding your place in the grand tapestry of existence. As the night sky deepens and the stars blaze even brighter, you begin to understand that the journey you've been on isn't just a physical one. It's a spiritual and philosophical one that connects you to the timeless wisdom of the ancient navigators. You are no longer just a traveler across the world. You are a part of a larger, eternal voyage. The Polynesians didn't just chart the seas. They charted the very course of life itself. Every island they reached was more than just a landfall. It was a reaffirmation of their connection to the world, their understanding of balance, and their commitment to harmony with the natural forces that surrounded them. As you sit there, the warmth of the tropical air surrounding you, the weight of this realization settles into your bones. It is not enough simply to cross oceans, to get from one place to another. The true voyage is about transformation, about becoming attuned to the rhythms of the world, to the vast cycles of the sea and the sky, and to the wisdom they offer. You felt the presence of the ocean in a new way, something the ancient voyagers must have known deeply. The ocean, the stars, the wind, they are not obstacles or tools. They are partners, guides, and teachers, and through them, you have learned to see the world in a different light, one that will never fade. The more you reflect on it, the more you realize that the Polynesian navigators were not just extraordinary explorers. They were philosophers, spiritual guides, and environmental stewards. Their understanding of the world was holistic. They didn't see nature as something to be controlled or understood in isolation. They saw themselves as part of a larger system, a system where the ocean, the stars, and the land were not separate from them, but integral to their existence. The ocean was not just a space to traverse, it was a living force with its own wisdom and lessons to impart. In their voyages, they didn't merely travel, they communicated with the ocean, with the stars. They listened to the sky, read the swells, and felt the rhythms of the earth beneath their feet. Their navigation wasn't just about science, it was about listening to the subtle language of the natural world, a language we've forgotten in the modern age. The technology of today has given us precision, but it's also distanced us from the natural world in a way that the Polynesians would have never considered. They didn't need instruments to tell them where they were or where they were going. They knew because they were in tune with the world around them. That is the greatest lesson of all, to navigate life with the same deep understanding of the world as the Polynesian navigators. To listen, to feel, and to adapt to the natural world, not as separate from us, but as a part of us. The ocean is not just a body of water, it is a teacher. The stars are not just distant points in the sky, they are guides. The land is not merely a place to settle, it is a living, breathing entity with which we must maintain a relationship of respect and understanding. This profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things is at the heart of Polynesian voyaging. It wasn't just about mastering the ocean, it was about living in harmony with it. They understood that to be a successful navigator, you had to learn to read the signs of the world, to be sensitive to the shifts in the wind, the temperature of the water, the movements of the stars. The real mastery wasn't in knowing the stars by heart. It was in understanding the language of the world, in knowing that each element, the wind, the sea, the sky, the stars, had a role to play in guiding you to your destination. The more you think about it, the more you realize that this understanding of navigation is something we can all apply to our own lives. In today's world, we are often too focused on the destination, on the endpoint, on achieving success as quickly as possible. But the Polynesians understood that the journey itself was just as important. Every step, every choice, every moment was part of a larger body, ongoing process of connection, learning, and growth. They didn't just reach their destinations, they became part of the world along the way, in deep, meaningful ways. Historians still argue about the specifics of Polynesian navigation methods. How much was learned through practice, how much was passed down through spiritual traditions, and how much was simply intuitive. But what's clear is that these navigators were experts in reading the world. They didn't just navigate based on the stars, they navigated based on a deep understanding of the environment, the currents, the animals, and the cycles of nature. They understood that every voyager's story, a story that connected them not just to their ancestors, but to the universe itself. Now, as you stand on the shore, the wind gently brushing against your face, and the stars twinkling above you, you understand that the lesson of navigation isn't just about crossing oceans. It's about moving through life with intention, with respect for the natural forces that shape us, and with a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. The ocean is not just a barrier to be crossed. It is a companion, a teacher, and a guide. The stars are not just points in the sky. They are guides, friends, and ancestors, lighting the way forward. The journey is never truly over. It's cyclical, ever turning. The lessons of the Polynesian navigators are not just ancient history. They are timeless truths that continue to resonate today. The world may have changed in many ways, but the principles of respect, balance, and harmony with the natural world remain as relevant as ever. The ocean is still our partner, the stars are still our guides, and the journey continues. As the night stretches on and you prepare to rest, you carry with you the wisdom of the ancient voyagers, the knowledge that true navigation isn't just about where we go, but how we move through the world. And as you close your eyes, you know that the ocean, the stars, and the land will always be there, guiding you on your own journey, as they have for countless generations. As the quiet of the night wraps around you, the sounds of the ocean become even more pronounced. The soft lap of the waves against the shore, the distant calls of nocturnal birds, the whispering wind. Each sound becomes a part of the larger symphony of the natural world. The world around you seems to be alive, breathing in time with your own breath, and it's in this stillness that you feel the deepest connection to the tradition of Polynesian navigation. The ocean is no longer just a vast expanse of water. It is a teacher, a partner, and a guide. The Polynesians didn't just view the ocean as something to be crossed. They saw it as a space to be engaged with, to be learned from. Every journey, every crossing was an opportunity to understand more deeply the rhythms of the world. The ocean wasn't a hostile environment. It was a place of connection, a bridge between the islands, the stars, and the people. As you sit by the shore, you think about how, in today's world, we've lost much of this understanding. Modern life is filled with distractions, rushing from one task to another, constantly focused on achieving the next goal, the next destination. The pace of life often pulls us away from the deeper rhythms of the world, from the ocean, from the stars, from the natural world that once guided our ancestors. But as you reflect on the teachings of the Polynesian voyagers, you begin to realize that it's not too late to reconnect. The stars, the sea, the winds, they're still here, waiting for us to remember their lessons. Just as the Polynesians navigated across the Pacific with nothing but their senses and their deep knowledge of the world, we too can learn to live in harmony with the rhythms of the earth. It's not about conquering nature, but about understanding it, respecting it, and moving with it. The ancient wayfinders didn't force their way through the ocean. They moved with it, guided by the stars, by the swell of the sea, by the winds that carried them. Their journeys were not about reaching an endpoint. They were about becoming part of the journey itself. Historians often focus on the remarkable physical accomplishments of these ancient voyagers, the precision with which they navigated, the distances they traveled without modern instruments. But there's something even deeper at play in their voyages. The wayfinding of the Polynesians wasn't just about knowing the stars or the currents. It was about understanding that everything is connected. The ocean wasn't just a physical space. It was a living, breathing force. And navigating it was about being in tune with that force, about aligning yourself with the natural world in a way that made the journey an extension of yourself. This is where the real lesson lies. To the Polynesians, navigating the ocean wasn't a task. It was a practice, a spiritual journey. The ocean was a place of mystery and wisdom, and the act of voyaging was about more than simply getting from one place to another. It was a way of engaging with the world, of understanding the intricate relationship between humanity and nature. The stars didn't just point the way. They were a reminder of the ancestors, of the knowledge passed down through generations. The winds weren't just a tool. They were part of a larger dance, moving in time with the rhythm of the earth. As you sit by the water, feeling the breeze against your skin, you begin to realize that this connection to the natural world, this understanding of the rhythms of the ocean and the stars, is something we've lost in the rush of modern life. We've become disconnected from the very forces that once guided our ancestors. But as you reflect on the wisdom of the Polynesian navigators, you understand that it's never too late to reconnect. We can learn to read the signs around us, to understand the language of the earth once more. It might not be about setting sail across the Pacific, but it's about navigating life with the same principles of respect, balance, and harmony that the Polynesians practiced. The stars, the sea, the land, they are still here, waiting for us to remember their lessons. They teach us that the journey is not just about reaching a destination. It's about how we move through the world, how we engage with the forces around us, and how we understand our place in the grand, interconnected story of the universe. As the night grows quieter and the waves continue their eternal rhythm, you begin to feel a sense of peace, a quiet understanding that the journey is ongoing. The wisdom of the Polynesian voyagers, passed down through the ages, has now become a part of you. And as you take a deep breath, you realize that, like the ancient navigators, you are never truly lost. The stars are your guides, the ocean is your partner, and the journey continues, always in rhythm with the world around you. This connection is not just about navigating the oceans. It's about navigating through life, guided by the same principles of respect, balance, and understanding. The Polynesians taught us that every journey is part of a larger story, one that connects us to our ancestors, to the land, to the sea, and to the stars. And as you stand there, the ocean at your feet and the stars above you, you understand that this journey too is eternal. As the first rays of dawn begin to stretch across the horizon, you sit in stillness, feeling the deep connection between the land, the sea, and the sky. The calmness of the morning light reflects a deeper sense of peace within you, a peace born from the understanding that the journey, like the ocean itself, is never truly finished. The Polynesians understood this intimately. The sea wasn't a final destination. It was a path, a means of connection, out a vast space where people traveled not only across the water, but across time, culture, and spirit. You too have become part of that endless flow. You feel the soft hum of the world around you, a reminder that the elements are not separate, but part of one interconnected system. The ocean, the wind, the sun, and the stars are all working in harmony, each influencing the other, creating an eternal cycle of movement. The Polynesians didn't just learn how to navigate these forces, they learned to live in accordance with them. Their wayfinding was not just about crossing the physical distances between islands, it was about understanding their place in a much larger, more complex web. As the sun rises higher, the clarity of the lesson deepens. Navigating across the Pacific, for the Polynesians, wasn't just about a path drawn on a map. It was about navigating their lives through the forces of nature, through the subtle rhythms of the universe. Every island they reached was a marker, not only of geographical distance, but of a spiritual journey, a journey that connected them to the elements, to their ancestors, and to one another. The islands were not isolated. They were part of a living system, connected by the waves, the currents, and the winds, and woven together through generations of voyaging knowledge and culture. Historians still marvel at how these voyagers could cross vast oceans with nothing more than their senses and their knowledge of the natural world. It's easy to think that modern technology has given us the edge, that satellites and GPS systems have given us a better understanding of our world. But in the silence of the morning, you realize that there is something more profound in the way the Polynesians navigated. It wasn't just the stars they used, it was their deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. They didn't just see the ocean as a physical body of water, they understood it as a part of a larger, ever-moving system, a dynamic relationship that connected them not just to the islands, but to the universe itself. As you reflect on this, you realize that the ancient Polynesians didn't just teach us how to navigate the seas, they taught us how to navigate life. They showed us that, in a world full of noise, the most profound wisdom comes not from technology, but from the world around us. The ocean, the stars, the wind, they are not obstacles or tools, they are guides. The world we live in is not isolated from us. It is a dynamic system, constantly shifting and changing, and to truly navigate it, we must be in tune with the natural forces that shape it. And that's where the lesson lies for you. The real art of navigation isn't just knowing where to go, but how to move through the world with intention, with respect for the forces that shape you. The Polynesians understood that true navigation was not just about crossing distances, it was about living in harmony with the environment. It was about being mindful, being present, and adapting to the changes around you with grace. Whether on the open ocean or on the path of life, the journey is not about rushing to the finish line. It is about learning to move in rhythm with the world around you. As the sun climbs higher, you feel the warmth of its rays, and with it, a deep sense of gratitude. The Polynesian way of voyaging has taught you something timeless, something not bound by time or technology. It is a practice of awareness, of harmony, and of connection. The lessons passed down through generations of navigators are not just stories of the past. They are living lessons that continue to guide us today, showing us how to navigate our own lives with clarity and purpose. Historians often focus on the precision with which the Polynesians navigated, but you now realize that it was never only about accuracy. It was about intuition, about a deep trust in the world, and in one's own place within it. The Polynesians didn't need maps or compasses. They had the stars, the wind, the waves, and the birds. They had the rhythm of the world itself. Their knowledge wasn't written down on paper. It was etched into their hearts, passed down through songs, chants, and stories that connected them to the land, the sea, and the stars. This is where the true beauty of their wayfinding lies. It wasn't just about knowledge. It was about connection. Connection to each other, to the natural world, and to the rhythm of the universe. And now, as you sit by the shore, feeling the morning breeze on your skin and watching the ocean shift with the first light of day, you understand that this connection is still available to you. The stars are still shining, the ocean is still vast, and the lessons of the ancient navigators are still waiting to be heard. Navigating the world today may be different from the voyages of the Polynesians, but the principles they lived by are timeless. The world is still full of signs, full of lessons, full of stories waiting to be learned. The ocean may be crossed with technology today, but the rhythm of the waves is still the same. The stars still guide us, and the winds still carry us forward. What's changed is our ability to listen, to slow down, to reflect, and to engage with the world in the way the Polynesians once did. As the day fully breaks, the sunlight touching the ocean with a soft, golden glow, you realize that the journey you've been on is not just about the past, it's about the future. The lessons of the Polynesians are not something to be studied from afar. They are something to be lived, something to be applied. You too are a voyager, navigating your own path in the world. The stars are still there, the ocean is still vast, and the journey is still unfolding. And as you move forward, you do so with the understanding that true navigation isn't just about reaching the destination. It's about moving with the world, respecting its rhythm, and finding your place in its grand, eternal dance. The day is now fully upon you, the sun casting its warm, golden light over the tranquil sea and the island at your feet. The ocean, vast and infinite, stretches out toward the horizon, inviting you to journey once more, this time not as a traveler on the move, but as one who has come to understand the eternal flow of the world. You've learned that the journey of the Polynesian navigators wasn't just about physical voyages across the sea. It was about spiritual voyages that connect us to the natural forces around us. It was about moving in rhythm with the world, listening to its whispers, and responding in kind. As you stand there on the shore, the full weight of the Polynesian understanding of life comes into focus. The stars, the ocean, the winds, they are not just elements that exist to guide us. They are parts of a larger, interconnected whole. To navigate the world with true wisdom is not to master these forces, but to live in harmony with them, to understand that we too are part of the grand, natural order. Every movement, every wave, every breath is a reminder that the journey isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about being present with the world in its entirety. The Polynesians knew this instinctively. They were born of the ocean and the land, and they carried that profound connection into everything they did. They didn't just sail the seas. They moved through the world, guided by the stars and the wind, living in rhythm with the ever-changing tides of the natural world. Every voyage they embarked on was a reaffirmation of their deep respect for the forces that shaped their lives. They didn't just chart the stars, they lived them, connected with them in a way that modern technology often fails to do. And yet, there's a timeless relevance to these lessons, even in the age of digital maps and global navigation. The spirit of the Polynesian wayfinding has not been lost. It is there, woven into the natural world around us, waiting to be rediscovered. It is a call to reconnect with the earth, the stars, the ocean, and ourselves. It's an invitation to slow down, to listen to the subtle whispers of the world, and to engage with it in a way that honors the balance and harmony that the Polynesians revered. It is a profound and simple truth. The journey is never truly over. There will always be new horizons, new islands to reach, new paths to discover. But more than the destination, it's the journey itself that defines us. As you take one last look at the vast Pacific before you, you realize that the greatest voyages are those that teach us about our place in the world, then about the connections that bind us to each other, to the ocean, to the sky. You've traveled not only across oceans, but across time, connecting with the wisdom of those who have come before you. And so, as the waves continue to lap at the shore, you feel a deep sense of peace, knowing that you too are part of an ongoing journey, a story that stretches across generations, cultures, and time. The Polynesian navigators may have sailed the Pacific long ago, but their lessons remain, alive in the rhythm of the ocean and the stars. And now, you carry those lessons forward as part of the eternal cycle of navigation. The Polynesians taught us to navigate life with reverence, patience, and respect for the natural world. The stars above you, the sea at your feet, and the wind on your face are the same forces that guided them. The ocean may no longer be a vast, uncharted expanse to cross, but it is still a teacher, still a guide. The stars are still above you, still shining their light, still offering guidance. And as you move forward, you do so with the understanding that true navigation isn't about the destination. It's about moving in harmony with the world around you. Now, with the sun fully risen, you stand at the edge of the ocean, filled with a profound sense of connection. The world is vast, but it is also deeply interconnected. You are not just a voyager, but a participant in the ever-moving dance of the natural world, guided by the stars, the sea, and the forces that have shaped humanity's journey through time. And as you step forward into the day, you do so with the knowledge that the journey is not about reaching a single point, but about moving through life with awareness, balance, and respect for the greater whole. With every step you take, you are part of the ancient tradition that connects you to the Polynesian voyagers. You are a link in the chain that stretches across generations, across the ocean, and into the future. And as you navigate through your own life, you will carry the wisdom of the ocean, the stars, and the sky, guiding you toward a future where balance, respect, and connection will always be the way forward.